What's up, story lovers? Welcome to Ben 10 What If? In today's video, we have a fantastic tale for you. What if Ben 10 could fuse all his aliens together? If this is your first time here, consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you never miss a story. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for your continued support. Alright, let's jump right into it. Chapter 1, Breaking Point. The warehouse district in Bellwood never stayed quiet for long. Tonight was no exception. Green and red flashes lit up the night sky as two figures clashed between abandoned buildings. Come on, Albedo. We've done this dance like 50 times already. Ben Tennyson ducked as a fireball zoomed past his head, singeing a few strands of his hair. Don't you ever get tired of losing? The white-haired doppelganger smirked, his crimson eyes gleaming with malice as his ultimatrix glowed. Ah, but this time the choreography has changed, Tennyson. Ben rolled his eyes and slapped his omnitrix. Whatever. Let's just get this over with. I've got a smoothie date with my couch tonight. A flash of green light enveloped him, and where Ben stood moments before was now a hulking crystalline figure. Diamond Head. Predictable as always, Albedo chuckled, twisting his own ultimatrix dial. Red light flashed, and suddenly he was a crystalline being as well, but darker, with sharper edges and glowing red crystals protruding from his shoulders. You forget, I've been studying your patterns. Meet Ultimate Diamond Head. Since when do you? Ben didn't finish his sentence as a barrage of explosive crystal shards slammed into him, sending him crashing through the wall of a warehouse. Diamond Head staggered to his feet, brushing debris from his shoulders. Okay, that's new. He formed his arm into a blade and charged, but Ultimate Diamond Head simply touched the ground, creating a forest of crystal spikes that erupted beneath Ben's feet. Whoa! Ben barely managed to leap away, transforming midair. Jet Ray. He zoomed around Albedo, firing neuroshock blasts from his eyes and tail. Let's see how your fancy crystal boy handles some speed. Again, so predictable. Another red flash, and Albedo transformed into a sleeker, more aerodynamic version of Jet Ray with additional wings and glowing red patterns across his body. Ultimate Jet Ray can break the sound barrier without trying. Before Ben could react, Ultimate Jet Ray slammed into him with such force that Ben crashed into another building, reverting to human form on impact. His body ached as he struggled to his feet. This isn't working, he muttered, checking the omnitrix which was already recharged. Time for someone with a little more punch. Ben slammed down on the omnitrix dial. Humongosaur. The 12-foot dinosaur-like alien roared, charging at Albedo. But his opponent merely smiled, transforming again into a much larger, more armored version of the Vaxasaurian with bone spikes and cannons growing from his arms. Ultimate Humongosaur, Albedo announced smugly. With biomissile launchers included. You've gotta be kidding me, Ben groaned just before a barrage of missiles knocked him backward. Gwen's voice came through his Omnitrix communicator. Ben. What's happening? Your vitals are spiking. Albedo's got some kind of upgraded ultimatrix, Ben grunted, dodging another missile barrage. He's countering every alien I throw at him with an ultimate version. We're on our way, Kevin's voice cut in. Just hang tight. Yeah, easier said than done. Ben dodged another attack and switched forms. Swamp Fire. The plant-like alien hurled fireballs at Ultimate Humongosaur, who simply batted them away before transforming again into a creature that looked like Swampfire but with a more tree-like appearance, blue flames, and multiple blooming fire flowers across its body. Ultimate Swampfire, Albedo explained, launching a stream of blue fire that was hot enough to melt the concrete beneath Ben's feet. Ben leapt away, switching rapidly to another form. Big Chill. The Necrophrygian's icy breath collided with Ultimate Swampfire's flames, creating a massive steam cloud between them. Using the cover, Ben flew up and around, hoping to attack from behind, but an Ultimate Big Chill, with 4 wings and a more spectral appearance, emerged from the steam, exhaling a blue flame that seemed to freeze Ben instantly. My flames freeze from the inside out, Albedo explained as Ben crashed to the ground, his frozen form shattering to reveal his human body. Ben groaned, his body battered. The Omnitrix was recharging again. He looked up to see Albedo approaching, now back in his human form but maintaining his red eyes and white hair. "I've spent years preparing for this, Tennyson," Albedo said, his voice cold with calculated rage. "Studying every alien in your arsenal, creating ultimate counters for each one. Your predictability is your downfall." "If I'm so predictable," Ben winced as he stood up, "then you should have seen this coming." He suddenly lunged forward, tackling Albedo to the ground. Albedo laughed, easily throwing Ben off. "Physical combat? That's your backup plan? Pathetic." The Omnitrix beeped, signaling it was ready again. Ben glanced at it, rapidly cycling through his aliens. He needed something unexpected, something Albedo couldn't counter. "Fine. You want unpredictable? Try this." Ben slammed down on the dial, transforming into a green and black blob-like alien. "Goop." Albedo raised an eyebrow. "Interesting choice, but futile." He transformed into ultimate goop, a more viscous version with metallic elements swirling within its semi-transparent body. Ben slithered around, trying to avoid Albedo's attacks, but the ultimate goop controlled its gravity projector with greater precision, slamming Ben against walls and the floor repeatedly. "You cannot win," Albedo said, reforming into his human shape while Ben lay defeated on the ground, the Omnitrix timing out again. "I have evolved beyond you in every way." Ben clutched his ribs, certain at least one was cracked. "There's gotta be something." His eyes fell on the Omnitrix, which was glowing with an unusual pattern he'd never seen before. Albedo noticed it too, his eyes widening. "What is that? What are you doing?" "I have no idea," Ben admitted honestly, watching as the Omnitrix's faceplate began rotating in a strange sequence, symbols appearing and disappearing rapidly. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work," Albedo snapped, raising his Ultimatrix to deliver a finishing blow. In desperation, Ben slapped the Omnitrix just as Albedo fired. A blinding green flash filled the warehouse, so intense that Albedo had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, something completely unexpected stood where Ben had been. It wasn't any single alien from his roster, it was a combination. The creature had Heatblast's flaming head and upper body, but 4 arms, lower body and extra set of arms. Diamond Head crystal shards protruded from its shoulders, and XLR-8's tail extended behind it. What is this?" Ben looked down at himself, his voice a strange harmonic blend of multiple aliens. "Did I just fuse them together?" Albedo took a step back, genuine shock on his face. "Impossible. The Omnitrix doesn't have fusion capability." The fused alien form looked at its hands, one pair fiery like Heatblast, the other muscular and red like 4 arms. "Well, looks like it does now." Ben's confidence surged as he felt the combined power flowing through him. He dashed forward with XLR-8 speed, slugging Albedo with 4 arm strength while simultaneously shooting fire from his Heatblast arms and crystal shards from his shoulders. The combined attack sent Albedo flying through several walls. Ben followed, moving faster than he ever had before, the strange fusion of powers creating possibilities his mind raced to comprehend. "Impossible," Albedo groaned as he climbed from the rubble. Azimuth would never. He didn't finish as Ben grabbed him with all 4 arms and slammed him into the ground. "Believe it, buddy." Ben grinned with Heatblast's flaming face. "I'm just as surprised as you are." Albedo twisted his Ultimatrix desperately. "Two can play at this game." Red light flashed, but instead of another transformation, the device sparked and powered down. "No. Not now. Looks like your knockoff can't handle the pressure," Ben quipped, lifting Albedo with one pair of arms while the other pair formed flaming fists. "Game over." Just then, Gwen and Kevin arrived in Kevin's car, skidding to a halt nearby. "Ben." Gwen called out, her hands glowing with mana as she surveyed the scene. "Is that you?" Yeah, it's me. Ben turned to face them, still holding albedo. Check this out. I somehow fused my aliens together. Kevin whistled, stepping out of the car. That's new. And freaky. Albedo used the distraction to twist free from Ben's grip and activate an emergency teleport device on his belt. This isn't over, Tennyson. Whatever you've done, I will replicate it and perfect it. Hey. Ben lunged for him, but Albedo vanished in a flash of red light. Damn it. The moment Albedo disappeared, Ben felt a strange instability in his fused form. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began to flash rapidly, and he felt the distinct personalities of each alien fighting for dominance inside his mind. Guys, something's wrong, he managed to say before dropping to his knees. Too many minds, can't control. Ben. Gwen rushed forward, creating a mana shield around him as energy began discharging wildly from his body. Stand back. Kevin warned, pulling Gwen away just as Ben's form erupted in green light. The explosion knocked them all backward. When they recovered, Ben was lying unconscious in human form in the center of a small crater, the Omnitrix flashing between green and red. Highly irresponsible, even by your standards. Ben groaned as consciousness returned, Asmatha's voice the first thing he heard. He was lying on a medical bed in Plumber HQ, his body aching everywhere. He cracked open his eyes to see the tiny Galvan standing on a hovering platform near his bed, arms crossed and expression furious. Nice to see you too, Ben mumbled, trying to sit up. Don't move, Gwen said from beside him, gently pushing him back down. You've got 3 broken ribs and a mild concussion. Ben looked around the room. Kevin was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Rook stood at attention near the door, and Grandpa Max was speaking quietly with a medical officer in the corner. What happened? Ben asked, wincing as pain shot through his side. You tell us, Kevin said. 1 minute you're some weird alien mashup, the next you're making a crater with your face. Asmath hopped onto Ben's chest, careful to avoid his injuries but clearly wanting to be face to face. You activated the Omnitrix's emergency fusion protocol, a feature that was never meant to be used. I didn't even know it had that, Ben protested. Of course you didn't, Asmath snapped. Because it's dangerous, unstable, and only designed as a last resort failsafe if the Omnitrix were about to be destroyed while in use. Grandpa Max joined the conversation. Ben was in pretty bad shape when we found him. Albedo nearly killed him. So the fusion saved my life, Ben pointed out. And nearly destroyed your mind in the process, Asmath countered. Fusing alien DNA is exponentially more complex than a simple transformation. Each alien species has its own biological imperatives, instincts, and thought patterns. When you fuse them, those patterns clash. Ben remembered the overwhelming sensation just before he blacked out, multiple consciousnesses fighting for control within him. But it worked, he said stubbornly. I had Albedo on the ropes. He couldn't counter it. Because he wasn't prepared for it, Asmath agreed. Neither were you. The fusion was already breaking down when your friends arrived. Had it continued much longer, the conflicting DNA might have torn you apart at a molecular level. Rook stepped forward, datapad in hand. The medical scans show unusual activity in Ben's hypothalamus and frontal cortex. It appears the fusion affected his brain chemistry. Will it go back to normal? Gwen asked, concern evident in her voice. It should, Asmath said, though he didn't sound entirely confident. The Omnitrix is designed to prevent permanent changes to the user's DNA. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix on his wrist. Instead of its usual green glow, the faceplate had a strange pattern swirling beneath its surface, like circuitry rearranging itself. What's it doing now? He asked. Asmath examined the device with narrowed eyes. Recalibrating. The fusion protocol triggered an adaptive subroutine I didn't expect. In English? Kevin prompted. The Omnitrix is evolving, Asmath explained with obvious frustration. It's attempting to stabilize the fusion capability that was accidentally activated. Ben couldn't help the smile that formed on his face. So I'll be able to do it again. Properly this time? Absolutely not. Azimuth exclaimed. I'm here to disable that function permanently. Wait, Ben protested. You saw what Albedo could do. He had an ultimate counter for every single alien. This fusion thing is the only advantage I have. It's too dangerous, Azimuth insisted, pulling out a small tool and reaching for the Omnitrix. Ben pulled his arm away. No way. We need to at least try to make it work. Ben, Grandpa Max's voice carried a warning tone. If Azimuth says it's too risky, I know, Ben said. But think about it. Albedo's not going to stop. He'll be back with something even worse next time. Plus, I managed to use it once already without permanent damage. Barely, Gwen pointed out. But I did, Ben pressed. And now that I know what to expect, I can prepare for it. Train with it. Azimuth's antennae twitched in annoyance. The fusion protocol was never meant to be sustainable. It's a last-ditch emergency function. Then make it sustainable, Ben challenged. You're the greatest inventor in 5 galaxies, right? If anyone can stabilize it, you can. The tiny Galvan narrowed his eyes at the obvious flattery but seemed to consider the point. Kevin snorted. He's got you there, little dude. I could attempt to modify the protocol, Azimuth admitted reluctantly. Create a more controlled version that doesn't put as much strain on your mind. But it would still be extremely risky. All the cool stuff is, Ben said with a grin that made Azimuth roll his eyes. Fine, the Galvan inventor finally conceded. But we do this my way. No unauthorized experimentation. No showing off. And absolutely no fusing more than 2 aliens together until I determine it's safe. Free, Ben haggled. I definitely had at least 3 in that fusion I did earlier, and it was awesome. 2, Azimuth said firmly. Take it or I disable the function entirely. Ben sighed. Fine. 2 it is. For now. Azimuth began working on the Omnitrix, muttering under his breath about reckless humans and the fate of the universe in the hands of a teenager. 3 days later, Ben stood in the Plumber HQ training room, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook watched from behind a reinforced glass barrier while Azimuth supervised from a floating platform. Remember, only 2 aliens, Azimuth reminded him for the 10th time. I've modified the interface to allow you to select them specifically before fusion. Got it, Ben said, examining the modified Omnitrix. The faceplate now had a split display when activated, allowing him to choose 2 aliens simultaneously. And maintain focus on your human consciousness, Azimuth added. That will be your anchor when the alien instincts try to overwhelm you. Ben nodded, taking a deep breath. Okay. Here goes nothing. He activated the Omnitrix, carefully selecting Heat Blast and Diamond Head from the holographic display. Then he pressed down on the dial. Green light engulfed him, and he felt the familiar sensation of transformation, but with a new twist, like 2 separate changes happening simultaneously and then merging. When the light faded, he stood as a crystalline being with flames erupting from joints and cracks in his diamond-like body. Whoa, he said, looking down at himself. His voice had a strange echo quality, as if 2 voices were speaking in perfect unison. This is wild. Vital signs stable, Rook reported from the monitoring station. Brain activity shows elevated patterns but within acceptable parameters. How do you feel, Ben? Gwen called through the intercom. Like I'm both of them at once, Ben replied, forming a crystal blade with one arm while generating flames with the other. But also still me. It's hard to explain. Try to use both powers simultaneously, Azimuth instructed. Ben nodded and concentrated. He created a large crystal sphere, then heated it from within until it glowed orange with intense heat. With a throwing motion, he launched it at a target drone, which exploded spectacularly on impact. Ha! Did you see that? Ben exclaimed. I couldn't do that as either Heat Blast or Diamond Head alone. The fusion appears to not only combine the aliens' abilities but create new applications through their interaction, Azimuth noted, sounding reluctantly impressed. Interesting. Let me try something else, Ben said eagerly. He created a path of crystals along the floor, then superheated them to create a wave of fire that traveled along the crystal path, engulfing a row of target drones. Kevin whistled. Okay, that was pretty cool. Thermal output exceeding both standard pyronite and combined measurements, Rook reported. The symbiotic relationship between the two species appears to enhance their individual capabilities. Ben continued experimenting, discovering new combinations of the two aliens' powers. He could create crystal structures that channeled and amplified heat blasts flames, or superheated crystal projectiles that exploded on impact. After 20 minutes, Azimuth called a halt. That's enough for today. Transformation duration is approaching critical threshold. I feel fine, Ben protested. I could keep going. Your biometrics suggest otherwise, Azimuth said firmly. The mental strain is accumulating even if you don't feel it yet. Deactivate the Omnitrix now. Reluctantly, Ben tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, reverting to human form. Immediately, he felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him, his knees buckling slightly. Kevin was through the door in an instant, catching him before he fell. Whoa, easy there, hero. I'm okay, Ben insisted, though he let Kevin help him to a bench. Just a little tired. Your brain was processing two separate alien consciousness patterns while maintaining your human identity, Azimuth explained, hovering over to them. It's mentally exhausting, even with the stabilizing modifications I made. Gwen handed Ben a sports drink. Here. Your blood sugar is probably tanking. Ben took it gratefully, downing half the bottle in one go. Thanks. The good news, Azimuth continued, is that the fusion was stable and you maintained control throughout. The modified protocol appears to be functioning correctly. So I can keep training with it? Ben asked hopefully. Azimuth nodded reluctantly. Yes, but with strict limitations. No more than 2 aliens at once, no fusions lasting longer than 30 minutes, and at least 24 hours between fusion attempts until your brain adapts to the process. What about in an emergency? Ben asked. If albedo shows up again, then you use it if absolutely necessary, Azimuth conceded. But be aware of the risks. Extended fusion could still cause permanent damage. Rook approached with a datapad. I have compiled a list of potentially effective alien combinations based on complementary abilities and compatible physiologies. Ben took the pad, scrolling through it with interest. Wow, there are some crazy possibilities here. XLR-8 and Wildmutt for super speed tracking. Gravitac and Lodestar for advanced gravity magnetic control. I calculated 45,220 viable 2 alien combinations from your current roster, Rook explained. Though some will likely be more effective than others. This is seriously awesome, Ben said, his excitement building despite his fatigue. Albedo won't know what hit him next time. Speaking of Albedo, Grandpa Max said as he entered the training room, we've got a problem. Intelligence reports indicate he's broken into a high-security Galvan research archive on Xenon. What would he want there? Gwen asked. Information, most likely, Azimuth said grimly. The archive contains historical records of Omnitrix prototype designs and test results, including early fusion experiments. Ben's eyes widened. You mean he's trying to replicate what I did? It would appear so, Azimuth confirmed. Though without direct access to the current Omnitrix code, he'll struggle to create a stable version. Unless he finds something in those archives that helps him, Kevin pointed out. We should stop him, Ben said, starting to stand before Gwen pushed him back down. You're in no condition to fight right now, she insisted. You need rest. Your cousin is correct, Azimuth agreed. Besides, by the time we could reach Xenon, albedo will be long gone. The plumbers are already investigating. Ben frowned but didn't argue. The fusion had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit. So what's the plan? He asked instead. You continue training with the fusion protocol under controlled conditions, Azimuth said. I'll work on further stabilizing the interface and monitoring albedo's movements through my contacts. And I'll coordinate with other plumber teams to track albedo's activities, Grandpa Max added. If he makes a move, we'll know about it. Ben nodded, already thinking about which alien combinations to try next. Despite the risks, he couldn't deny the rush he'd felt using the fusion, the incredible power and the new possibilities it opened up. Over the next week, Ben trained diligently with the fusion protocol, testing different alien combinations and learning to manage the mental strain. Some pairings worked beautifully together. XLR-8 and 4 arms created a speedster with devastating strength, while Echo Echo and Big Chill produced a being that could generate freezing sound waves. Other combinations proved more challenging. Mixing Goop and NRG created an unstable radioactive slime that was difficult to control, while combining Brainstorm and Wrath resulted in a being with genius-level intelligence but almost no impulse control. After each training session, Ben would spend hours with Rook, analyzing the results and planning new combinations to try. The Omnitrix seemed to be adapting to the frequent fusions, making the transitions smoother and reducing the mental fatigue. Your neural pathways are showing signs of adaptation, Azimuth noted during one checkup. Your brain is developing new connections to handle the multiple consciousnesses more efficiently. So I could potentially handle more than 2 aliens at once? Ben asked hopefully. Azimuth frowned. Theoretically, yes. But I strongly advise against attempting it so soon. Of course, Ben being Ben, he couldn't resist pushing the boundaries. One evening, while training alone, against explicit instructions, he decided to attempt a 3-alien fusion. He carefully selected Jetray, Big Chill, and Astrodactyl, 3 flying aliens that he thought would complement each other well. Just a quick test, he told himself as he activated the modified fusion protocol. What Azimuth doesn't know won't hurt him. The transformation was more intense than any of the dual fusions, the green light brighter and the sensation more disorienting. When it completed, Ben found himself in a form unlike anything he'd experienced before, a sleek, 4-winged creature with Jetray's aerodynamic body, Big Chill's ghost-like translucency, and Astrodactyl's energy whips and jetpack. This is awesome, he exclaimed, his voice a haunting harmonic blend of all 3 aliens. He took off, flying around the training room with incredible speed and agility. He could phase through walls like Big Chill, fire neuroshock blasts like Jetray, and create energy constructs like Astrodactyl. The combined abilities were exhilarating. But within minutes, he felt something wrong. The 3 alien consciousnesses began to clash in his mind, each fighting for dominance. Big Chill's cold, calculating instincts warred with Jetray's predatory nature and Astrodactyl's energetic personality. Stay focused. Ben struggled to maintain control, but his flight became erratic, crashing into walls and equipment. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began flashing red, but not in the usual timing out pattern. This was rapid and urgent, like a warning. Ben felt his very molecules vibrating, threatening to tear apart. With the last of his concentration, he managed to slap the Omnitrix symbol, forcing a reversion to human form. He collapsed on the training room floor, his entire body shaking with exhaustion and his nose bleeding. That was a really bad idea, he groaned to himself. The door to the training room burst open, and Gwen rushed in, her hands glowing with mana. Ben! What happened? The energy sensors went crazy. I might have tried a 3-alien fusion, Ben admitted weakly as Gwen helped him sit up. You what? She exclaimed. After Azimuth specifically told you not to? I thought I could handle it, Ben said defensively, wiping blood from his nose. And I almost did. It was working great until until it wasn't. Gwen's expression shifted from anger to concern. Are you okay? Should I call the medical team? Ben shook his head, immediately regretting the motion as dizziness swept over him. No, I'm fine. Just need to rest. And maybe not mention this to Asmuth. Ben, Gwen said in her most disapproving tone. Fine, fine. You can tell him, Ben conceded. After he finishes the stabilizing upgrades he's working on. Before Gwen could respond, an alarm blared throughout the base. They exchanged glances and hurried to the command center, Ben pushing through his fatigue. Grandpa Max was coordinating a response team when they arrived. Kevin and Rook were already gearing up. What's going on? Ben asked. Albedo, Max said grimly. He's attacking a research facility in downtown Bellwood. And he's not alone. The main screen showed footage of Albedo, transformed into Ultimate Humongosaur, tearing through security forces. Beside him were strange, robotic creatures with shifting, modular bodies. What are those things? Gwen asked, pointing to the robots. Unknown, Rook replied. But they appear to be adapting to counter each defensive measure the facility employs. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. Like they're evolving in real time. The facility specializes in advanced adaptive algorithms, Max explained. Artificial intelligence that can learn and adapt to new situations instantly. Let me guess, Kevin said, absorbing metal from a nearby panel to armor himself. Perfect for figuring out how to create stable fusion transformations. Exactly, Max confirmed. If Albedo gets his hands on that technology, he won't, Ben said firmly, activating the Omnitrix. We're stopping him right now. Ben, you're in no condition, Gwen started to protest. I'm fine, Ben insisted, though he was still fighting dizziness from his earlier experiment. Besides, I'm the only one who can match Albedo's ultimate forms. Before anyone could object further, he selected a dual fusion of 4 arms and Diamond Head, a combination he practiced extensively and found both powerful and stable. The transformation washed over him, revealing a 4-armed crystalline being with diamond-like growths covering his muscular red body. Let's do this, he said, his dual-toned voice resolute. The research facility was in chaos when they arrived. Sections of the building were on fire, security personnel were retreating, and Albedo was systematically destroying equipment and downloading data. Tennyson. Albedo called out when he spotted Ben, a cruel smile spreading across Ultimate Humongosaur's face. I was wondering when you'd show up. It's over, Albedo, Ben called back, his crystalline arms gleaming in the firelight. Whatever you're planning stops here. Albedo laughed. On the contrary, it's only beginning. He gestured to the robotic creatures accompanying him. Meet the Adaptoids. A little gift from my new associate. As if on cue, a shimmering portal opened behind Albedo. From it emerged a tall, elegant being with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with every movement. They wore ornate armor covered in strange symbols and carried a staff topped with a swirling nebula-like energy. Ah, Benjamin Tennyson, the being said, their voice melodious yet somehow unsettling. The boy who wields the Omnitrix. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Who are you? Ben demanded, instinctively taking a defensive stance. The being bowed slightly, the gesture more mocking than respectful. I am known as the curator. Collector of the unique, preserver of the extraordinary across the multiverse. He's the one who provided me with the means to track your new fusion ability, Albedo explained, looking smug. Quite the coincidence that we both developed an interest in you at the same time. There are no coincidences in a properly curated collection, the curator replied smoothly. Their eyes fixed on Ben with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. And you, Benjamin Tennyson, are about to become my most prized specimen. Sorry, not interested in being part of anyone's collection, Ben shot back, forming crystal blades on all 4 arms. The curator smiled, tapping their staff on the ground. Your interest is irrelevant. The adaptoids have already analyzed your current fusion pattern. Observe. The robotic creatures suddenly shifted, their modular bodies reconfiguring into forms that resembled Ben's current fusion but with subtle modifications. Attack, the curator commanded softly. The adaptoids surged forward. Ben met them head-on, slashing with his crystal blades and using his 4 arms to grapple with multiple opponents at once. But to his shock, each time he struck one, it adapted, crystals growing to counter his blades, joints reconfiguring to escape his grapples. "They're learning," he called out to his team as they joined the fight. "Don't use the same move twice." Gwen created mana barriers to separate the adaptoids while Kevin, armored in metal, tackled them from behind. Rook used his proto-tool with expert precision, switching between different configurations to keep the robots off balance. Meanwhile, Albedo transformed again, this time into Ultimate Echo. He launched sonic discs that surrounded Ben, bombarding him with devastating sound waves. Ben created a crystal dome around himself for protection, but the sonic vibrations began to crack his defenses. Thinking quickly, he used 4 arms strength to punch the ground, launching himself through the ceiling and away from the sonic attack. Albedo followed, flying after him with Ultimate Echo's sound manipulation. "Running already? I thought you were eager to test your new fusion powers." "Just getting some room to work with," Ben retorted, landing on the roof and immediately hurling crystal shards that he'd superheated with 4 arms friction-generating claps. The explosive crystals caught Albedo off guard, blasting him backward. But he recovered quickly, splitting into multiple sonic clones that surrounded Ben. "My ultimate forms are still superior to your crude fusions," Albedo taunted. "The curator was right about you, all power, no finesse." "I'm just warming up," Ben replied, stamping his foot to create a crystal platform that launched him into the air. He came down with all 4 arms extended, crystal blades gleaming, directly in the center of Albedo's sonic clones. The impact created a shockwave that disrupted Albedo's duplicates, forcing them back into a single form. Ben pressed his advantage, grappling with Albedo and using his crystal-enhanced strength to slam him repeatedly into the roof. "Not so superior now, huh?" Ben taunted. Albedo's response was to transform again, this time into Ultimate Swampfire. Blue flames engulfed Ben, hot enough to begin melting his crystal components. "Gah!" Ben released his hold and staggered back, parts of his body glowing orange from the heat. "As I was saying," Albedo smirked, advancing with flames dancing around his hands. "Superior in every way." Below them, the battle raged between Gwen, Kevin, Rook, and the adaptoids. Despite their best efforts, the robots were gradually gaining the upper hand, learning and countering each new tactic. And through it all, the curator watched with calm interest, making occasional notes on a holographic display projected from their staff. "Fascinating adaptation rate," they murmured. "The boy shows remarkable intuitive use of combined abilities despite minimal training. Such potential." Ben was in trouble. His current fusion couldn't withstand Ultimate Swampfire's heat for long. He needed something different, something Albedo wouldn't expect. In a desperate move, he hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, timing out the fusion and reverting to human form for just a moment before slamming down on the Omnitrix again. This time he chose a combination of Big Chill and Goop, intangibility and amorphous adaptability. The new fusion created a semi-transparent, ghost-like slime being that could phase through attacks while maintaining acidic properties. Ben immediately went intangible as Albedo launched another fire blast, letting it pass harmlessly through him. "What?" Albedo's eyes widened in surprise. "How are you changing fusions so quickly?" "New upgrade," Ben lied, not wanting to reveal that he was pushing the Omnitrix far beyond what Azimuth had authorized. In truth, the rapid succession of fusions was already giving him a pounding headache. He flowed around Albedo like a phantom wave, his intangible acidic body passing partially through Ultimate Swampfire and freezing sections of him from the inside out. Albedo roared in pain, trying to burn away the cold but finding his flames ineffective against Ben's intangibility. Not used to fighting a ghost slime, are you? Ben taunted, continuing his attack. Guess your ultimate forms aren't so ultimate after all. Albedo snarled and transformed again, this time into Ultimate Big Chill. Two can play the intangibility game, Tennyson. The two ghostly beings clashed, passing through each other and attempting to freeze or acidify their opponent. It was an eerily silent battle, with neither able to land a solid blow yet both causing damage with each pass. Below, Gwen had created a massive mana dome to contain several adaptoids while Kevin and Rook dealt with the others. But more kept coming through the portal the curator had opened, each generation more advanced than the last. We need to close that portal. Gwen called out, sweat beading on her forehead from the strain of maintaining her spell. The curator merely smiled at her efforts. Your energies are remarkable as well, Anodite child. Perhaps you'll join my collection too. Not happening, Kevin growled, charging at the curator with metal-covered fists. To everyone's shock, the curator simply waved a hand, and Kevin froze in midair. I've collected beings who could break planets with a thought, they said mildly. Your bravado, while charming, is misplaced. With a casual gesture, they sent Kevin flying back into Rook, both tumbling across the floor in a heap. Ben saw this from above and felt a surge of anger. He needed to end this quickly, but Albedo was matching him move for move. Each time he tried a new approach, Albedo countered with an ultimate version. The strain of maintaining the fusion while fighting was taking its toll. His head pounded, and he could feel the Goop and Big Chill personalities warring within his mind. He needed something more, something unexpected. In a decision he knew he would regret, Ben tapped the Omnitrix symbol again, this time mentally overriding the dual fusion limitation. Instead of choosing 2 aliens, he selected 3, Goop, Big Chill, and Heat Blast. The transformation was painful, his very molecules seeming to resist the combination. When it finished, he was a swirling vortex of ghostly fire and acidic ice, barely maintaining a humanoid shape. The 3 alien minds crashed against his consciousness like tidal waves. What have you done? Albedo gasped, genuinely shocked. Ben couldn't even form words properly, the triple fusion too unstable for coherent speech. Instead, he unleashed a barrage of powers, freezing fire that burned with cold, acidic mist that melted through Ultimate Big Chill's defenses, intangible flames that couldn't be extinguished. Albedo retreated, transforming rapidly between different ultimate forms, trying to find one that could counter this chaotic new threat. But Ben pressed forward relentlessly, driven more by instinct than strategy as he struggled to maintain control. The curator's attention immediately shifted to Ben, their eyes widening with delight. Magnificent! A triple fusion, and so soon after discovering the ability. Your potential exceeds my wildest expectations, Benjamin Tennyson. Below, the adaptoids suddenly stopped attacking Gwen, Kevin, and Rook, all turning their sensors toward Ben's new form. As one, they began reconfiguring, trying to adapt to the chaotic energy signature he was emitting. Ben, what are you doing? Gwen shouted, recognizing the danger immediately. That's too unstable. But Ben couldn't hear her over the roaring in his mind. The triple fusion was tearing him apart from the inside, 3 alien consciousness patterns fighting for dominance while his human mind struggled to maintain control. He managed to corner Albedo, bombarding him with the full fury of his combined powers. Albedo, transforming into Ultimate Echo again, tried to counter with sonic attacks, but Ben's intangible, amorphous fire simply flowed around the sound waves. Enough of this, the curator declared, raising their staff. It's time we preserve this moment before the boy destroys himself. Energy surged from the staff, forming a containment field around Ben. To his horror, he found himself unable to phase through it despite Big Chill's intangibility. A perfect specimen, the curator said, approaching the trapped Ben. Such power, such potential. You'll be the centerpiece of my collection. Albedo, seeing his chance, moved to grab the staff. Our deal was that I get the Omnitrix technology after you extract it. The curator barely spared him a glance. Plans change. This specimen is too valuable to partition. Inside the containment field, Ben was losing his battle for control. The triple fusion was breaking down, sections of his body shifting randomly between the three alien forms or bizarre combinations thereof. Pain lanced through him as his molecular structure destabilized. In desperation, he focused every remaining ounce of his willpower on the Omnitrix symbol embedded in his chest. With a mental command born of pure survival instinct, he forced a safety override. The Omnitrix responded with a pulse of green energy that spread throughout his body, forcibly stabilizing the fusion for just a moment. In that brief window of control, Ben unleashed everything he had against the containment field. The resulting explosion rocked the entire facility. The containment field shattered, releasing a wave of chaotic energy that knocked everyone, including the curator and Albedo, off their feet. When the dust settled, Ben lay in his human form in the center of a smoking crater, the Omnitrix on his wrist flashing between red and green. Sparks danced across its surface as it attempted to reset itself. The curator recovered first, approaching the unconscious Ben with their staff extended. Damaged but salvageable. The Omnitrix itself appears to be reconfiguring to accommodate the strain. Get away from him! Gwen shouted, launching a barrage of mana discs. The curator deflected them casually. Your concern is touching, but unnecessary. I preserve my specimens in perfect condition, their experiences and memories intact. He's not a specimen, Kevin growled, climbing to his feet. He's our friend. And my cousin, Gwen added, her eyes glowing with mana. You're not taking him anywhere. The curator sighed as if dealing with children. I'm not offering a choice. Before they could move, Albedo suddenly tackled the curator from behind. Nor am I. He snarled, trying to wrestle the staff away. I didn't come this far to be double-crossed. The momentary distraction was all Gwen needed. She teleported to Ben's side, creating a mana bubble around them both. Rook. The emergency recall. Rook, understanding immediately, activated a device on his proto-tool. A swirling blue portal opened beside them. No. The curator shouted, pushing Albedo away with unexpected strength. They thrust their staff forward, sending a beam of energy toward the portal. Kevin intercepted it, his metal body absorbing the blast though it sent him crashing through a wall. Go, he shouted. I'll be right behind you. Gwen hesitated for just a moment before dragging Ben's unconscious form through the portal, Rook covering their retreat with suppression fire from his proto-tool. The last thing they saw before the portal closed was the curator turning their wrath on Albedo, energy crackling between them as the adaptoids closed in from all sides. Ben awoke in the medical bay of Plumber HQ, his entire body aching as if he'd been run over by a truck. Several monitoring devices were attached to him, and the Omnitrix on his wrist was encased in some sort of diagnostic cradle. Finally awake, I see, came Asmatha's disapproving voice from nearby. I suppose it was too much to hope you'd follow explicit instructions about not attempting a triple fusion. Ben groaned, both from pain and from knowing he was in for a lecture. How long was I out? 37 hours, Asmath replied. Your brain activity was dangerously erratic for the first 12. We weren't certain you'd wake up with your mind intact. The severity of that statement hit Ben hard. That bad, huh? Worse, Gwen said, entering the room with Kevin and Rook. You nearly died, Ben. Your cellular structure was breaking down at a molecular level. The Omnitrix emergency protocols were the only thing that saved you, Asmath added. They forced a reversion to human form and began repairs to your DNA. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist. Is it, okay? The Omnitrix is remarkably resilient, Asmath said with a hint of pride despite his anger. It's already adapted its systems to prevent such a dangerous fusion in the future. Which is fortunate, since you clearly cannot be trusted to follow safety protocols. I didn't have a choice, Ben protested weakly. Albedo was countering everything I threw at him, and that curator guy was about to capture me. Speaking of which, Kevin interjected, who or what exactly was that guy? He was throwing around power like it was nothing. The curator is troubling, Azimuth admitted, his tone grave. I've heard rumors of such a being, a collector who travels between dimensions, preserving specimens of unique life forms and technology. Preserving how exactly? Ben asked, not liking the sound of that. By removing them from their native timelines and keeping them in stasis, Azimuth explained. Essentially, kidnapping them from reality itself. And he wants Ben? Gwen asked, her concern evident. More specifically, he wants the Omnitrix and its new fusion capability, Azimuth corrected. Though I suspect he'd take Ben as part of the package, given how integrated the Omnitrix is with your DNA now. Great, Ben muttered. So now I've got Albedo and this curator guy after me. If it's any consolation, they appeared to be at odds with each other when we left, Rook offered. Though whether their alliance has completely dissolved remains to be seen. Ben tried to sit up, wincing at the pain that shot through his body. So what now? We can't just wait for them to make another move. First, you rest and recover, Grandpa Max said firmly, entering the room. That's an order, not a suggestion. But, no buts, Max cut him off. You're no good to anyone if you push yourself into an early grave. The plumbers are on high alert, and Azimuth has additional security measures being implemented at key locations. Ben wanted to argue but found he lacked the energy. The triple fusion had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit. Fine, he conceded. But as soon as I'm back on my feet, we need a plan to deal with both Albedo and this curator guy. Already working on it, Max assured him. Rook is coordinating with other plumber teams to track Albedo's movements, and Azimuth is researching everything we know about the curator. Which isn't much, Azimuth admitted. Beings that can move between dimensions are rare and difficult to track. What about the Omnitrix? Ben asked, looking at the diagnostic cradle around his wrist. Can you stabilize the fusion function properly now that you've seen what happens with a triple fusion? Azimuth's expression was unreadable. I'm working on it. The data from your reckless experiment has actually provided valuable insights into the fusion process. See? Not a total waste then, Ben said with a weak grin. Don't push it, Azimuth warned. You're still in serious trouble for disobeying direct instructions. Ben's grin faded. I know. I'm sorry. But you didn't see what Albedo could do with those ultimate forms. And the curator, he was on another level entirely. Which is precisely why you need proper training and preparation before confronting them again, Azimuth insisted. No more shortcuts, no more unauthorized experiments. Agreed, Ben said, surprising everyone with his quick capitulation. I felt what happened during that triple fusion. It was like being torn apart from the inside. I don't want to go through that again. Azimuth nodded, seemingly satisfied with Ben's sincerity. Good. Then perhaps we can make some progress. I'll continue working on stabilizing the Omnitrix's fusion protocols while you recover. As the others left to let him rest, Ben stared at the ceiling, replaying the battle in his mind. Despite the danger and the pain, he couldn't deny the incredible power he'd felt during the fusions, especially the triple fusion, however briefly he'd maintained control. If he could harness that power properly, with Azimuth's help and proper training, he might stand a chance against both Albedo and the curator. But first, he needed to understand exactly what he was dealing with. The Omnitrix on his wrist gave a soft beep, its faceplate swirling with patterns he'd never seen before. It was adapting, evolving in response to the stress it had endured. And so was he. Whatever came next, Ben knew one thing for certain: the game had changed, and the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 2, Convergence. 2 weeks of forced recovery felt like an eternity to Ben. He'd spent most of it pacing his room, watching reruns of Sumo Slammers, and bugging Azimuth for updates on the Omnitrix modifications whenever the Galvan inventor would answer his calls. Dude, if you don't stop fidgeting, I'm gonna absorb this table and beat you with it, Kevin said as they sat in Mr. Smoothie, watching Ben tap his fingers rapidly against the tabletop. I can't help it, Ben replied, glancing at the Omnitrix for the 100th time that hour. The device had finally stopped its erratic flashing, settling back to its familiar green glow, but with subtle differences in the interface patterns. Azimuth says the final diagnostic cycle's finished today. Gwen sipped her smoothie, eyeing her cousin with concern. And then what? You jump right back into fighting superpowered bad guys? That's kind of what I do, Ben shrugged. Besides, we haven't seen Albedo or the curator in 2 weeks. They're planning something, I can feel it. Plumber Intelligence suggests they're no longer working together, Rook noted, looking up from his datapad. There have been reports of Albedo raiding Galvan research outposts in the Andromeda Galaxy. And the curator? Ben asked. Rook shook his head. Nothing. He seems to have vanished completely. That's what worries me, Ben admitted. Someone that powerful doesn't just give up and go home. His Omnitrix suddenly beeped, displaying a holographic message. Ben's face lit up. It's from Azimuth. The diagnostics are complete. He wants me back at Plumber HQ for final testing. Kevin rolled his eyes. Try to contain your excitement. Oh, I'm excited all right, Ben grinned, already standing up. 2 weeks of sitting around doing nothing while Albedo's out there getting stronger. It's payback time. The training facility had been completely redesigned since Ben's mishap with the triple fusion. The walls were reinforced with energy-absorbing panels, and new monitoring equipment lined the observation area. The modifications are complete, Azimuth announced as Ben entered, the tiny Galvan hovering on his platform at eye level. I've stabilized the fusion protocol and implemented additional safeguards. So I can start training again? Ben asked eagerly. Yes, but with stricter parameters, Azimuth warned. The Omnitrix will now actively prevent you from attempting fusions beyond your current capability level. Meaning no triple fusions, Ben said with a slight frown. For now, Azimuth clarified. The Omnitrix will adapt as your neural pathways develop. Think of it as training wheels, they come off when you're ready, not before. Ben nodded, understanding the necessity even if he didn't like it. So what can I do? I've programmed a training regimen that will systematically introduce you to increasingly complex dual fusions, Azimuth explained. Starting with compatible alien pairs and gradually moving to more divergent combinations. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook entered the observation area as Azimuth activated a holographic display showing various alien combinations. I've also added a new feature to help manage the mental strain, Azimuth continued. The Omnitrix will now create a temporary neural buffer between your consciousness and the alien personalities during fusion. So I won't feel them fighting in my head? Ben asked, remembering the mental chaos of his previous attempts. You'll still be aware of them, but they won't be able to overwhelm you, Azimuth clarified. Think of it as turning down the volume, not muting it completely. You need to learn to harmonize with the alien consciousnesses, not suppress them. Ben nodded, eager to begin. Let's do this. Azimuth activated the first training sequence. We'll start with something familiar, Heat Blast and 4 arms. Their personalities and powers are relatively straightforward to integrate. Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting the recommended combination. As the transformation washed over him, he immediately noticed a difference. The mental pressure was still there, but muted, like hearing music through a wall rather than at full blast. Whoa, he said as the transformation completed, looking down at his 4-armed, flame-covered body. That's way smoother. The neural buffer is functioning correctly, Azimuth noted, monitoring the readings. Now, try to consciously harmonize the 2 alien aspects rather than forcing them to obey you. Ben closed his eyes, focusing inward. He could feel Heat Blast's fiery temperament and 4-armed straightforward strength as distinct presences in his mind. Instead of trying to dominate them as he had before, he tried to find common ground between them. They both like to hit stuff, he realized aloud. Just in different ways. As he focused on this shared trait, the two alien personalities seemed to align, their energies flowing together more naturally. Ben felt the strain in his mind ease further. Yes, exactly, Azimuth said, sounding genuinely pleased. Each alien has its own psychological profile, but there are always areas of overlap. Find those, and the fusion becomes more stable. Over the next several hours, Ben practiced with different dual combinations, learning to identify the commonalities that made harmonization easier. Some pairs worked naturally together. XLR-8 and Wildmutt created a predatory tracker with enhanced speed, while Diamondhead and Cannonbolt produced a nearly indestructible rolling juggernaut. Other combinations proved more challenging. Echo and Brainstorm created a being with multiple independently thinking duplicates, each one trying to outthink the others. Goop and Gravitac resulted in a fusion that constantly struggled between liquidity and gravitational pull. By the end of the day, Ben had successfully mastered 8 different dual fusions, each more stable than anything he'd achieved before the Omnitrix modifications. Your progress is impressive, Azimuth admitted as Ben reverted to human form after his final training fusion. Your neural pathways are adapting rapidly to the multiple consciousness patterns. So when can I try a triple fusion again? Ben asked, unable to help himself. Azimuth frowned. Not for some time. The neural buffer is designed to gradually reduce its effect as you develop natural harmonization skills. When it determines you're ready for more complex fusions, it will notify both of us. Ben wanted to argue but knew better. Fine. What's next then? Rest, Azimuth said firmly. Neural adaptation requires recovery time. We'll continue tomorrow with more complex dual fusions. As if on cue, Grandpa Max entered the training area. That might have to wait. We've got a situation in downtown Bellwood. Looks like Fistrick and his crew trying to steal experimental tech from the new research park. Finally, some action. Ben exclaimed, immediately heading for the door. After 2 weeks of sitting around, I could use a workout. Ben, Azimuth called after him. Remember, dual fusions only, and preferably ones you've already practiced. Yeah, Ben called back with a dismissive wave. Don't worry, I've got this. Downtown Bellwood was in chaos. Fistrick and his crew had deployed massive robotic exosuits to tear open the research facility, and police barricades were doing little to stop them. This is gonna be fun, Ben grinned as Kevin's car screeched to a halt at the scene. He was already cycling through fusion combinations on the Omnitrix. Just don't overdo it, Gwen warned. This is your first real combat since the incident. Relax, Ben assured her, selecting Diamondhead and 4 arms. I'm starting with the basics. The transformation washed over him, and moments later a 4-armed crystalline powerhouse stood ready for battle. Let's crush this. The team moved in, with Gwen creating mana platforms to evacuate civilians while Kevin absorbed concrete from a fallen barrier and Rook deployed his proto-tool in blaster configuration. Hey, Fistrick! Ben called out, slamming his 4 crystal arms together. Don't you know it's rude to break into other people's labs? Fistrick turned in his massive exosuit, surprise evident on his face. Tennyson. What the heck happened to you, bro? Upgrade, Ben replied simply before charging forward. The fusion of Diamondhead and 4 arms proved devastatingly effective against Fistrick's technology. Ben's crystal arms were strong enough to tear through metal plating, while his ability to create crystal structures allowed him to immobilize the robotic limbs. Yo, this ain't cool. Fistrick shouted as Ben ripped one arm off his exosuit. Since when can you mix and match, bro? Since I decided regular aliens were getting boring, Ben quipped, creating a crystal ramp that launched him into the air. He came down with all 4 arms extended, crystal blades forming on each one, and sliced through the exosuit's power core. The machine sparked and shut down, leaving Fistrick trapped inside. This is seriously not cool, bro. Ben turned to face the rest of Fistrik's crew, who were already retreating at the sight of the fusion alien. Anyone else want to try their luck? One by one, they surrendered, dropping their weapons and raising their hands. That was, surprisingly easy, Rook commented as he cuffed the last of Fistrik's men. Told you I had it, Ben said, reverting to human form with a satisfied grin. The fusion combos are working great now. Yeah, against D-list criminals, Kevin pointed out. Albedo and that curator guy are a whole different league. One step at a time, Ben shrugged. Besides, it felt good to get back in action. As plumber containment teams arrived to secure the scene, Ben noticed a strange shimmer in the air across the street. It was barely perceptible, like heat rising from pavement, but it seemed to be watching them. Guys, do you see that? He asked quietly, nodding toward the distortion. Gwen followed his gaze, her eyes glowing briefly with mana. I sense something strange. Not quite in our dimension. Before they could investigate further, the shimmer vanished. Ben frowned, an uneasy feeling settling in his stomach. I don't think we're the only ones who were watching this fight. The curator? Rook suggested. Maybe, Ben said. Or one of his scouts. Either way, I think our training break is officially over. Back at Plumber HQ, Azimuth reviewed the combat footage with concern. The fusion was stable, at least. You maintained harmonization throughout the encounter. So I passed the test? Ben asked hopefully. Hardly, Azimuth scoffed. Fistrik is a common thug with stolen technology. A true test would be, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the base. Grandpa Max's voice came over the intercom, all personnel to alert stations. We have an unauthorized dimensional breach in Sector 7. Spoke too soon, Ben muttered, already running toward the source of the alarm with Azimuth hovering quickly beside him. They arrived to find plumbers in defensive positions around a swirling portal that had opened in the middle of the research wing. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook were already there, weapons and powers at the ready. What's happening? Ben asked, activating the Omnitrix. Dimensional incursion, Rook reported. Energy signature matches recordings from our encounter with the curator. As if summoned by his name, the elegant figure of the curator stepped through the portal. He looked exactly as Ben remembered, iridescent skin, ornate armor, and that unsettling staff topped with what looked like a miniature galaxy. Benjamin Tennyson, the curator greeted with a slight bow. I hope you've recovered from our last encounter. What do you want? Ben demanded, his finger hovering over the Omnitrix dial. The curator smiled, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons pointed at him. Merely to talk. Had I wished harm, I would not have announced my arrival so conspicuously. Last time we talked, you tried to add me to your collection, Ben reminded him. A misunderstanding, the curator said smoothly. I acted hastily, driven by excitement at discovering your unique abilities. I've come to make amends and present an offer. We're not interested in any offers, Grandpa Max stated firmly, his energy pistol trained on the curator. I believe that should be Benjamin's decision, the curator replied, his eyes never leaving Ben. After all, it concerns his future most directly. Ben crossed his arms. Fine. Talk. The curator nodded, pleased. You've discovered something extraordinary, the ability to harmonize multiple alien DNA patterns simultaneously. But you've only scratched the surface of what's possible. And let me guess, Ben said sarcastically, you want to help me reach my full potential out of the goodness of your heart. Not entirely altruistic, I admit, the curator chuckled. In my collection, I preserve the extraordinary from across the multiverse. Not by kidnapping, as you seem to believe, but by offering sanctuary and purpose. You tried to trap me in an energy field, Ben pointed out. A precaution, nothing more. The unstable nature of your triple fusion threatened to tear apart the local space-time continuum. I merely sought to contain the discharge. Azimuth scoffed loudly. Your reputation precedes you, curator. You don't preserve, you possess. The beings in your collection are little more than trophies. The curator's expression hardened slightly. Bold words from one who creates weapons of mass destruction, first thinker. The Omnitrix was designed to preserve and understand alien life, not exploit it, Azimuth retorted. As is my collection, the curator insisted before turning back to Ben. But we digress. My offer is simple, join me voluntarily, and I will teach you to master fusion abilities beyond anything Azimuth can guide you toward. Full omnifusion, the simultaneous harmonization of all alien DNA within the Omnitrix. Ben couldn't help being intrigued, despite his suspicion. All of them? At once? Ben, don't listen to him, Gwen warned. It's a trap. Not a trap, the curator corrected. An opportunity. I have studied fusion phenomena across countless realities. I can show you how to achieve perfect harmony without the limitations Azimuth has imposed. Ben glanced at Azimuth, who was literally shaking with anger. The limitations exist for a reason. The human mind cannot safely process that many consciousness patterns simultaneously. Perhaps an ordinary human mind, the curator conceded. But Benjamin has already demonstrated exceptional neural adaptability. With proper guidance, he could transcend those limitations. And become what? Ben asked. One of your preserved specimens. The curator smiled. A partner. An equal. Together, we could explore the multiverse, discovering and preserving the extraordinary before it is lost to time. And all I have to do is leave my home, my family, and everything I care about, Ben said flatly. A small price for unlimited knowledge and power, the curator replied. Besides, time passes differently in my realm. You could spend years learning and return here mere days after your departure. Sorry, not interested, Ben said firmly. I'll figure out my own potential, thanks. The curator sighed, looking genuinely disappointed. I expected as much, though I hoped otherwise. He turned to leave, then paused. A word of warning, then. Your former adversary, Albedo, has been quite busy in your absence. We know he's been raiding Galvan outposts, Rook said. Yes, but do you know why? The curator asked with a raised eyebrow. He seeks ancient knowledge, specifically, records of early fusion experiments conducted by Azimuth's ancestors during the first Omnitrix prototypes. Azimuth's eyes widened. Those records were sealed for good reason. The early attempts at fusion technology were disastrous. Indeed, the curator nodded. And now Albedo has access to that knowledge, flawed as it may be. He's already attempting to replicate fusion capabilities in his Ultimatrix. Without the proper safeguards, Azimuth said gravely, he could destabilize his own DNA beyond repair, possibly threatening everything around him in the process. The curator turned back to the portal. My offer remains open, Benjamin Tennyson. When Albedo returns, and he will, you may find yourself wishing you had accepted my guidance. With that, he stepped back through the portal, which closed behind him with a soft implosion of air. For a moment, everyone stood in silence, processing what had just happened. Well, that wasn't ominous at all, Kevin finally said, breaking the tension. Ben turned to Azimuth. Is it true? Could Albedo really figure out how to do fusions? Possibly, Azimuth admitted reluctantly. The early fusion experiments were crude but foundational. With Albedo's knowledge of the Omnitrix and Ultimatrix systems, he might be able to adapt those principles. Then we need to find him before he succeeds, Ben said decisively. Where are these Galvan outposts he's been hitting? Scattered throughout the Andromeda galaxy, Rook reported, checking his datapad. The latest was on Hathor, a moon in the Orion system. Then that's where we start, Ben said. If the curator is worried enough about Albedo to warn us, this is serious. I agree, Azimuth said, surprising everyone. But you're not ready to face Albedo yet. Your fusion abilities are still developing. So I'll develop them faster, Ben shrugged. More training, more practice. It's not that simple, Asmuth insisted. Neural pathways don't form overnight, no matter how much you practice. Then what do you suggest? Ben asked, frustrated. We just sit around waiting for Albedo to perfect his fusion abilities. Asmuth was quiet for a moment, clearly weighing options in his mind. There might be a way to accelerate your neural adaptation. It's experimental and not without risk. I'll take it, Ben said immediately. You haven't even heard what it is yet, Gwen pointed out. Doesn't matter, Ben replied. If it helps me stop Albedo, I'm in. Asmuth sighed. The Omnitrix contains complete neural patterns for each alien species in its database. In theory, I could modify the transformation process to gradually introduce these patterns to your mind even while in human form, essentially giving you a low-level connection to the alien consciousnesses at all times. So I'd be part alien even as regular Ben, he asked. On a neural level only, Asmuth clarified. No physical changes. But it would allow your mind to adapt to multiple consciousness patterns more quickly. What's the catch? Kevin asked suspiciously. Potential personality bleed-through, Asmuth admitted. Ben might experience mood swings, unusual impulses, or memory flashes from the alien species. Would it be permanent? Grandpa Max asked, concerned. No, the effects would fade if the process were discontinued, Asmuth assured him. But while active, Ben would need to maintain strong focus on his human identity. Ben considered this for only a moment. Let's do it. Ben, wait, Gwen grabbed his arm. This sounds dangerous. There has to be another way. Like what? Ben challenged. The curator made it clear Albedo's getting closer to cracking fusion. We don't have time to do this the slow way. Perhaps a compromise, Rook suggested. We continue tracking Albedo while Ben undergoes this neural adaptation process under controlled conditions. That's reasonable, Asmuth agreed. I'll need at least a day to make the necessary modifications to the Omnitrix anyway. Ben nodded reluctantly. Fine. One day. But then we go after Albedo, ready or not. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation. While Asmuth worked on modifying the Omnitrix, Rook coordinated with plumber teams across the Andromeda Galaxy to track Albedo's movements. Gwen, meanwhile, had her own research project. I've been going through the archives here and at the Magical Library on Legerdemain, she explained, spreading ancient texts across a table in the Plumber HQ library. Looking for any references to fusion powers or multiple consciousness integration. Find anything useful? Ben asked, peering at the dusty tomes. Maybe, Gwen said, pointing to a page covered in strange symbols. This text describes ancient Anodite rituals for consciousness sharing, temporarily merging minds with other beings to gain their knowledge and abilities. Like what you do when you go full Anodite? Ben asked. Similar, but more controlled, Gwen explained. The ritual described here is specifically for maintaining individuality while accessing multiple consciousness patterns. She looked up at him. Sound familiar? Like what I'm trying to do with the fusion aliens, Ben realized. Exactly. The principles might help you maintain control even with Asmuth's neural adaptation process. Ben studied the text, though he couldn't read the strange symbols. So how does it work? It's a meditation technique, Gwen explained. You visualize your core self as a central point, with the other consciousnesses as orbiting satellites. You acknowledge them without becoming them. Worth a try, Ben shrugged. Better than just hoping I don't start acting like Wrath when I'm trying to eat breakfast. Gwen smiled. That would actually be pretty entertaining. For you, maybe, Ben grumbled, but returned the smile. Their moment was interrupted as Kevin entered the library. Asmuth is ready for you, Ben. Says the modifications are complete. Ben took a deep breath. Here goes nothing. In the lab, Azimuth had connected the Omnitrix to a complex array of equipment. The device itself looked unchanged, but the holographic display above it showed new patterns swirling within its core. "The modifications are complete," Azimuth announced. "I've selected 10 alien species to begin with, those whose neural patterns you've shown the greatest compatibility with during your fusion training." "Only 10?" Ben asked, somewhat disappointed. 10 simultaneous consciousness influences is already pushing the boundaries of safety, Azimuth said sharply. "This isn't a game, Ben." "Right, sorry," Ben apologized. "So how does this work? Do I just activate it like a normal transformation?" "No," Azimuth explained. "I've created a new function, neural integration mode." He pointed to a specific sequence on the Omnitrix interface. "Activate this, and the Omnitrix will begin the gradual introduction of alien neural patterns to your consciousness." "And I stay human?" Ben confirmed. "Physically, yes. Mentally, it will be a new experience," Azimuth warned. "I've incorporated safeguards to prevent total personality override, but you'll need to maintain focus on your human identity." Ben nodded, remembering Gwen's meditation technique. "Center point with orbiting satellites." "Got it." Azimuth raised an eyebrow but didn't ask for clarification. "Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be," Ben replied, activating the new sequence. Unlike the usual flash of transformation, the Omnitrix pulsed with a gentle green glow that seemed to seep into Ben's skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it hit him, a rush of sensations, memories, and instincts that weren't his own. He staggered, gripping the edge of the lab table for support. "Ben?" Gwen asked worriedly, moving to his side. Whoa," Ben blinked rapidly, his mind reeling as new thought patterns integrated with his own. "This is wild." He could feel them, distinct personalities and mindsets flowing alongside his consciousness. For Arm's straightforward aggression, Diamondhead's crystalline resilience, XLR-8's hyperactive processing, Heatblast's fiery temperament, Gray Matter's analytical precision, and 5 others, all present yet separate from his core self. "Focus, Ben," Azimuth instructed. "Remember your human identity." Ben closed his eyes, using Gwen's technique to visualize his core self as a central point with the alien consciousnesses orbiting around him. To his surprise, it worked, the chaotic flood of alien thoughts organized into manageable streams that he could access without being overwhelmed. "I think I've got it," he said, opening his eyes. "It's like having 10 extra perspectives on everything, but I'm still me." "Excellent," Azimuth said, monitoring the readings. "The integration appears stable. How do you feel?" "Different," Ben admitted. "But good different. I can think faster, notice more details." He glanced around the lab, suddenly aware of dozens of small things he'd never paid attention to before, the specific frequency of the lighting, the minute vibrations in the floor from distant machinery, the slight variations in air temperature throughout the room. "Gray Matter's influence," Azimuth noted. "Enhanced analytical processing." Ben moved toward the door, his movements subtly altered, more fluid, more precise. "And XLR-8's reflexes, I think. Everything seems slower than normal." "Your neural processing has accelerated," Azimuth confirmed. "Be careful not to move too quickly until you adjust. Your body is still human, even if your mind is processing at enhanced speeds." Ben nodded, concentrating on moving normally despite the urge to zip around the room. "So how long do I stay like this?" "We'll maintain the integration for 12 hours, then assess your adaptation rate," Azimuth replied. "If all goes well, we'll increase the duration gradually. And this will help me master fusion faster." Ben confirmed. "In theory, yes. By adapting to multiple alien consciousness patterns in your human form, your mind should be better prepared to handle them during actual fusion transformations." Kevin, who had been watching skeptically from the corner, approached Ben. "So you've got alien brains in your head now? Can you understand what Rook's saying when he goes all formal and technical?" Ben grinned. Actually, yeah. His syntactical structure is perfectly logical given his cultural background and linguistic training. Everyone stared at him. What? Ben asked. You just used syntactical in a sentence, Gwen pointed out. Correctly. Oh, Ben realized. Gray matter influence again, I guess. This is going to take some getting used to, Kevin muttered. The neural integration proved both useful and challenging over the next few days. Ben's mind adapted quickly to the alien consciousness patterns, allowing him to think in ways he never had before, analyzing problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously, reacting with enhanced speed and precision, and remembering details with crystal clarity. But there were downsides too. Occasional personality bleed-through led to moments where he'd briefly adopt alien mannerisms, speaking with wrath's aggressive third-person declarations or brainstorms verbose pomposity. His sleep was filled with dreams from alien homeworlds he'd never actually visited, and certain environmental triggers could cause momentary disorientation as alien instincts conflicted with human reactions. On the third day, during a training session in the plumber gym, Ben was sparring with Kevin when a particularly intense surge of forearms aggression took over. What started as a routine practice match ended with Kevin pinned against the wall, Ben's forearm pressed against his throat. Ben! Gwen shouted, snapping him back to himself. Ben immediately released Kevin, stepping back in horror. I'm sorry, I don't know what, forearms got a little excited, Kevin coughed, rubbing his throat. I get it. This is exactly what I warned about, Azimuth said, hovering nearby on his platform. The alien consciousness patterns are becoming more integrated with your own, making harmonization easier but also increasing the risk of personality bleed-through. I can handle it, Ben insisted, though the incident had shaken him. I just need better control. Which is why we're practicing, Gwen reminded him, placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. The meditation techniques are helping, right? Ben nodded. Yeah, they are. It's just a lot to manage sometimes. Perhaps we should consider, Azimuth began, but was interrupted by an urgent alert from Ben's Omnitrix. Emergency transmission from Galvan Prime, a computerized voice announced. Azimuth immediately accessed the message. A holographic display showed a Galvan scientist, panic evident in his large eyes. First thinker, we have a security breach. Albedo has infiltrated the sacred archives. He's accessed the Primal Codex and, the transmission cut off abruptly. The Primal Codex? Ben asked, noting Azimuth's expression of horror. What's that? The original genetic algorithms for the Omnitrix, Azimuth explained grimly. The foundation code that makes transformation possible, including the emergency fusion protocols. So Albedo now has everything he needs to create stable fusions, Rook concluded, having just entered the gym. Worse, Azimuth said. The Primal Codex contains experimental algorithms I abandoned as too dangerous, including a theoretical approach to full omnifusion. The same thing the curator mentioned, Ben realized. Combining all alien DNA simultaneously. A concept I deemed too hazardous to pursue, Azimuth confirmed. The mental and physical strain would be catastrophic for any wielder. But Albedo doesn't care about safety, Kevin pointed out. Exactly, Azimuth agreed. He'll attempt to implement the omnifusion protocol regardless of the dangers, to himself or anyone around him. Ben's expression hardened. Then we need to stop him before he succeeds. Where would he go to work on this? Somewhere isolated, with advanced technological resources, Azimuth reasoned. Given his recent activities, I'd guess one of the abandoned Galvan research stations in the outer regions of the Andromeda Galaxy. Then that's where we're going, Ben decided. Rook, prep the Proto-TRUK for space travel. We leave as soon as possible. Ben, Azimuth cautioned, you're still adjusting to the neural integration. A confrontation with Albedo now would be extremely risky. More risky than letting him crack omnifusion first. Ben challenged. I don't think so. Azimuth sighed, knowing there was no arguing with Ben when his mind was made up. At least let me adjust the integration parameters to optimize your fusion capabilities. If you're going to face albedo, you'll need every advantage. Ben nodded. Do it. And maybe bump up the number of alien consciousness patterns while you're at it. 10 seems kind of limited if we're facing omnifusion. 15, Azimuth conceded reluctantly. No more. Your mind is adapting well, but there are limits to how far we can safely push this. 15 it is, Ben agreed. Let's get to work. 6 hours later, Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and Rook were aboard the Proto-TRUK, heading for the Andromeda Galaxy. Ben sat in meditation, focusing on integrating the 5 new alien consciousness patterns Azimuth had added to the neural interface: Swampfire, Big Chill, Echo Echo, Humungosaur, and Chromastone. How's your head? Gwen asked quietly, sitting down beside him. Ben opened his eyes. Crowded, but manageable. The meditation really helps. Good, she smiled. I've been thinking about what the curator said, about albedo using ancient fusion knowledge. Yeah. Gwen pulled out one of the old texts she'd brought with her. The Anodite records mentioned that fusion magic was abandoned because it created unpredictable reality warping side effects. If albedo's using similar principles, he could cause serious damage beyond just himself. Ben finished her thought. Great, another thing to worry about. There's more, Gwen continued, turning to another page. The texts describe a counter-ritual, a way to stabilize or neutralize unstable fusions by creating a harmonizing resonance. You think you could use that against albedo if his fusion goes haywire? Ben asked hopefully. Maybe, Gwen said. I've been practicing the incantations, but it's complex magic. I'd need to be close to him for it to work. Which would be extremely dangerous, Rook commented from the pilot's seat. Proximity to an unstable fusion event could expose you to temporal-spatial distortions. Worth the risk if it means stopping him, Gwen insisted. Kevin, who had been unusually quiet during the journey, finally spoke up. I don't like this. We're charging in against a guy who's potentially got the same powers as Ben but with zero restraint, plus ancient forbidden knowledge, plus who knows what else he's cooked up. You suggesting we turn around? Ben asked. No, Kevin replied. Just saying we should have a better plan than find albedo and punch him. I have a plan, Ben protested. Which is? Gwen prompted. Find albedo and, strategically engage him using optimal fusion combinations based on tactical assessment, Ben finished, gray matter's vocabulary clearly influencing his response. Kevin rolled his eyes. So find him and punch him, but with fancy words. Essentially, Ben admitted with a grin. But seriously, I've been thinking about which fusion combinations would work best against him. The problem is, we don't know what he's capable of now. Which is why I've prepared contingency strategies for various scenarios, Rook announced, activating a holographic display showing different battle plans. Including worst-case outcomes. Such as? Gwen asked. Albedo achieving stable omnifusion, albedo creating unstable reality warping side effects, albedo allying with the curator, and several others. You really plan for everything, don't you? Ben said, impressed despite himself. I find it reduces anxiety about unknown variables, Rook replied matter-of-factly. The ship's sensors suddenly beeped an alert. We're approaching the coordinates, Rook announced. Sensors detect significant energy readings consistent with Omnitrix technology. Ben moved to the viewport, gazing at the small moon orbiting a gas giant below. That's it? Doesn't look like much. The Galvin research station is built into the moon's surface, Rook explained. Primarily underground to shield sensitive experiments from cosmic radiation. And to hide whatever they were working on, Kevin added cynically. Activating stealth mode, Rook said, engaging the ship's cloaking system. We'll approach from the dark side and enter through a maintenance airlock. As they drew closer, Ben felt a strange sensation, a pulling at the edge of his awareness, like a familiar voice calling from a great distance. Do you guys feel that? Gwen nodded, her eyes glowing briefly. There's powerful energy down there. Something, resonating. Resonating with what? Kevin asked. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. With this, I think. Whatever Albedo's doing, it's interacting with the Omnitrix somehow. The Primal Codex, Asmatha's voice came over the communicator, startling everyone. It contains synchronization protocols that allow Omnitrix devices to detect and communicate with each other. You're still monitoring us? Ben asked. Of course, Asmath replied tersely. This situation is far too dangerous to leave unsupervised. The resonance you're feeling suggests Albedo has already begun implementing the fusion protocols. Then we need to move fast, Ben said, already preparing for battle. Rook, get us down there now. The abandoned research station was eerily silent as they made their way through dimly lit corridors. Emergency lights cast a pale blue glow over ancient Galvan technology, much of it in disrepair after decades of neglect. This place gives me the creeps, Kevin muttered, his hand transformed into a metal blade as he led the way. Gwen's hands glowed with mana, providing additional light. The energy signature is stronger down that corridor, she said, pointing to a junction ahead. Ben nodded, feeling the strange resonance growing more intense. The alien consciousnesses in his mind seemed agitated, responding to the energy like animals sensing a storm. Everyone stay alert, he warned, activating the Omnitrix. Albedo could have traps or those adaptoid robots from before. They proceeded cautiously, following the energy signature deeper into the facility. Eventually, they reached a massive circular door bearing Galvan security symbols. The main research chamber, Rook identified, scanning the door with his proto-tool. Energy readings are off the charts inside. Can you get us in? Ben asked. Rook nodded, connecting his proto-tool to the ancient security panel. The systems are active but outdated. Give me a moment to bypass the door suddenly slid open on its own, cutting Rook off mid-sentence. Or someone could just let us in, Kevin said warily, raising his transformed hand. It's an invitation, Ben realized. He knows we're here. Trap? Gwen asked. Definitely, Ben confirmed. But we don't have a choice. He selected a fusion combination on the Omnitrix, Diamondhead and Chromastone, a pairing he'd been working on that offered both offensive power and energy absorption capabilities. The transformation washed over him, revealing a crystalline being with purple energy lines running through his diamond-like body, the crystal formations glowing with absorbed power. Stay behind me, Ben instructed, his dual-toned voice echoing in the corridor. They entered the chamber cautiously. It was enormous, a domed space at least 100 meters across, filled with complex machinery arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Holographic displays flickered with streams of code and genetic sequences, while energy conduits pulsed with red light throughout the room. And there, standing on the central platform, was Albedo. But not as they expected to find him. His human form had changed, taking on aspects of various aliens. His right arm was crystalline like Diamondhead's, his left resembled 4 arms' muscular limb. His torso showed patches of Heatblast's magma-like skin, while his lower body had XLR8's black and blue coloration with the telltale wheels at his feet. His face remained recognizably Albedo's, but with Big Chill's moth-like eyes and Swampfire's textured skin. Ah, Tennyson, Albedo greeted, his voice a discordant blend of multiple tones. Right on schedule. I was beginning to think you wouldn't accept my invitation. What have you done to yourself? Ben asked, genuinely shocked at Albedo's appearance. Merely a preliminary test, Albedo replied, gesturing to his hybrid body. A physical fusion of 7 alien DNA samples, crude but functional. The real breakthrough, however, is happening inside. He tapped his temple. 15 different consciousness patterns, perfectly harmonized. Ben felt a chill. That's exactly what I've been doing. Albedo finished with a smirk. Yes, I know all about Asmatha's neural integration protocol. The primal codex was quite illuminating. But while you timidly add a few consciousnesses at a time, I've embraced the full potential. You've barely begun the neural integration, and you're already showing signs of mental instability, Gwen observed, noting the subtle twitches and micro-expressions crossing Albedo's face. You can't possibly be maintaining proper control. Control is overrated, Albedo dismissed. I prefer synergy. With blinding speed, he suddenly appeared directly in front of them, having moved with XLR8's velocity. And I've only just started. Ben reacted instantly, creating a crystal shield that Albedo shattered with four-arm strength. The impact sent Ben sliding backward, but he quickly recovered, absorbing the kinetic energy through Chromastone's power. Guys, fan out, he ordered as he returned fire with purple energy blasts from his palms. Albedo dodged most of the blasts with supernatural agility, then countered by generating streams of fire from his heat blast patches. 15 consciousnesses is merely the beginning, Tennyson. The primal codex revealed the theoretical limit is much, much higher. There's a reason Asmath never pursued that, Ben shot back, creating crystal structures to block the flames. The human mind can't handle that much input. A human mind, perhaps, Albedo agreed, suddenly splitting into 3 identical copies like Echo Echo. But I haven't been truly human for some time, have I? The 3 Albedos attacked simultaneously from different directions. Ben managed to fend off 2 with crystal barriers, but the third got through his defenses, delivering a blow that cracked his crystalline form. Gwen immediately launched mana discs at the Albedo copies, while Kevin, now covered in the metal heat absorbed from a nearby console, tackled the one that had hit Ben. Rook provided covering fire with his proto-tool. Your friends are becoming annoying, all 3 Albedos said in unison. They each raised a hand, and gravity suddenly intensified around Gwen, Kevin, and Rook, forcing them to their knees. Gravitax powers, Ben realized. Let them go, Albedo. This is between you and me. As you wish, the Albedos replied, merging back into a single form. The gravitational effect dissipated, but before his friends could recover, Albedo generated a crystalline barrier around them, trapping them in a diamond-like cage. Now we can speak privately, Albedo said, turning his full attention to Ben. I wanted you to witness this, Tennyson. The moment I surpass you once and for all. Ben noticed that the machinery around them was activating, energy levels rising as conduits pulsed with increasingly bright red light. What are you doing? Ben demanded, charging another energy blast in his palm. Implementing the full Omnifusion protocol, Albedo explained, moving back toward the central platform. The primal codex contained theoretical approaches, but lacked the practical implementation. Fortunately, I found something even better in the sacred archives, records of an ancient device called the Unitrix. Unitrix? Ben repeated, the name triggering recognition in gray matter's consciousness within his mind. A prototype that attempted to merge multiple DNA samples into a single form. Precisely, Albedo smiled, pleased at Ben's knowledge. Abandoned because it was too dangerous according to Asmatha's notes. But with modern refinements and the power of this facility's original purpose. Which was what, exactly? Ben asked, stalling while trying to formulate a plan. Consciousness transference, Albedo revealed. The Galvan were attempting to upload their minds into synthetic bodies, to achieve immortality. They failed, of course, but the technology for consciousness manipulation remains functional. Ben glanced at his trapped friends. Gwen was already working on a spell to break through the crystal cage, while Rook analyzed its structure with his proto-tool and Kevin tried to simply smash their way out. You realize this is insane, right? Ben said, turning back to Albedo. Even if you could achieve stable omnifusion, the power would tear you apart. Only if uncontrolled, Albedo countered. With proper harmonization, which I've already demonstrated with 15 consciousness patterns, the results should be quite sustainable. He connected himself to the central platform with cables that attached to ports in his hybrid flesh. Care to witness history, Tennyson? Ben didn't answer with words. Instead, he launched himself forward, firing energy blasts while simultaneously creating crystal projectiles. But Albedo was ready, raising a multilayered shield of energy, mana, and crystal that absorbed or deflected everything Ben threw at him. Too late, Albedo grinned as the machinery fully activated. Red energy coursed through the cables connected to his body, and he began to levitate above the platform. The process has begun. Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, quickly switching to a new fusion, Big Chill and XLR8, creating a spectral speedster capable of phasing through Albedo's defenses. "Gwen," he called out as he raced toward Albedo. "How close are you to breaking out?" "Almost there," she called back, her hands glowing intensely as she worked to counter the crystal cage. Ben phased through Albedo's shields, aiming to disrupt the cables connecting him to the machinery. But as he reached out, Albedo's body suddenly pulsed with red light, and a shockwave of energy threw Ben backward. "The fusion is progressing faster than anticipated," Albedo said, his voice changing, becoming deeper and more resonant. His body began to shift more dramatically, cycling through different alien features in rapid succession. All DNA samples synchronizing. Consciousness patterns aligning. "This is bad," Ben muttered, picking himself up. He rushed forward again, using his phasing ability to get close, but another, stronger pulse of energy repelled him. "Ben!" Gwen shouted as the crystal cage finally shattered. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever he's doing is destabilizing the entire facility." As if to emphasize her point, the room trembled, support beams creaking ominously as the power surge overwhelmed the ancient infrastructure. "We need to shut down the machinery," Rook called out, racing toward the control consoles. "Too late for that," Kevin said, pointing at Albedo. The metamorph was now surrounded by a swirling vortex of red energy, his form continuously shifting between different alien aspects. His laughter echoed throughout the chamber, distorted by the multiple voices speaking as one. "I can feel them all," Albedo exulted. Every DNA sample, every consciousness, every power, synchronized into perfect harmony. "It's not harmony," Ben shouted over the growing maelstrom. "It's chaos. You can't control that much power. Watch me." Albedo roared. The energy vortex suddenly collapsed inward, compressing around Albedo in a blinding flash of red light. When it cleared, a new being stood on the platform. It was Albedo, but transformed beyond recognition. His body was a perfect blend of dozens of alien species, the crystalline armor of Diamond Head covering Humongousaur's massive frame, heat blasts flames emerging from strategic points, Big Chill's wings extending from his back, and countless other features from Ben's alien roster, all colored in Albedo's signature red instead of Ben's green. "Behold," Albedo's voice boomed, now a harmonic chorus of all the alien voices speaking in perfect unison. "True omnifusion." Ben stared in shock. "That's impossible." "For you, perhaps," Albedo replied, flexing his new form experimentally. "Your human mind lacks the capacity for full integration. But I've transcended such limitations." To demonstrate, he raised a hand, and a swirling vortex of elemental energies formed above his palm, fire, ice, electricity, radiation, and more, all perfectly controlled. "The power is intoxicating," Albedo continued. "I can access every ability simultaneously, each one enhanced by its interaction with the others." Ben exchanged glances with his team, all of them recognizing the gravity of the situation. "Guys, I think we need a new plan." Before they could respond, Albedo struck. Moving with impossible speed, he appeared directly in front of Ben, delivering a blow that combined 4 arms strength, XLR8's momentum, and NRG's radiation. The impact sent Ben crashing through multiple walls of the facility, his fusion form barely holding together. Gwen immediately launched a barrage of mana attacks while Kevin charged with metal-covered fists. Rook provided tactical support with precision shots from his proto-tool. But Albedo merely waved a hand, creating a reality distortion field that warped their attacks back at them. Pathetic, he declared as they were thrown in different directions by their own redirected efforts. You cannot comprehend what I've become. Ben struggled to his feet among the rubble, his fusion form flickering as the damage threatened to force a reversion. Maybe not, he admitted. But I know what happens when you push the Omnitrix too far. Albedo tilted his head, curious. Oh. It pushes back, Ben said, slapping the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Instead of reverting to human or choosing another dual fusion, Ben did something desperate. He mentally commanded the Omnitrix to synchronize with the Neural Integration Protocol, channeling all 15 alien consciousness patterns he'd been adapting to into a single transformation. The Omnitrix flashed warning signals, but Ben pushed through, forcing the device to comply. Green light engulfed him as the transformation began, more intense than any before. Ben, no. Gwen shouted, sensing what he was attempting. Your mind isn't ready for a 15-way fusion. But it was too late. The transformation completed, revealing Ben's own version of a multi-alien fusion. Unlike Albedo's harmonious blend, however, Ben's form was clearly unstable, different alien aspects shifting and competing for dominance, the green energy of the Omnitrix visibly struggling to maintain cohesion. Not ideal, Ben managed to say, his voice a discordant jumble of alien tones. But it'll have to do. Fascinating, Albedo observed. You forced a multiple fusion without proper neural integration. How long do you think you can maintain it before your mind shatters? Long enough, Ben replied, launching himself at Albedo with desperate intensity. The clash between them sent shockwaves throughout the facility, causing further structural damage. Ben fought with raw determination, channeling every alien ability he could access through his unstable form, Heatblast's flames, Diamondhead's crystals, for arm strength, XLR-8 speed, and more, all deployed in a chaotic but effective assault. But Albedo countered each move with superior control, his omnifusion form allowing him to access the perfect defense or counterattack for every approach Ben tried. You're only hastening your own destruction, Albedo taunted as he deflected another of Ben's attacks. I can sense the instability in your fusion. Your mind is fracturing under the strain. Ben knew Albedo was right. He could feel the alien consciousnesses warring within him, each demanding control. The meditation techniques Gwen had taught him were barely keeping him functional. But he couldn't give up, not with what was at stake. Meanwhile, Gwen had retreated to a safer distance with Kevin and Rook. This is getting worse by the second, she said, watching the battle with growing concern. Ben can't maintain that form much longer, and Albedo's only getting stronger. Got any bright ideas? Kevin asked. Because physical attacks aren't doing squat against either of them right now. Gwen's eyes lit up with sudden realization. The counter-ritual. The anodite technique for stabilizing fusion energy. Will it work on something this powerful? Rook questioned. I don't know, Gwen admitted. But it's our only shot. She pulled out the ancient text she'd been studying. I need to get closer to them, ideally at the center of their conflict where the energies are most intense. That's suicide, Kevin protested. If I don't try, Ben is going to die anyway, Gwen countered firmly. His fusion is already breaking down. Indeed, Ben's form was showing clear signs of deterioration, patches flickering between different alien aspects, energy discharging erratically, movements becoming increasingly uncoordinated as he struggled to maintain coherent thought. I'll create a distraction, Rook offered. Kevin, you get Gwen into position. Before Kevin could argue further, Rook charged toward the battling fusion beings, his proto-tool configured into its most powerful artillery mode. He fired a barrage at Albedo, drawing his attention momentarily. Now! Kevin urged, grabbing Gwen and racing toward the center of the conflict. Albedo noticed them too late. By the time he turned to intercept, Gwen was already in position, her hands raised as she began chanting in the ancient anodite language. What are you doing? Albedo demanded, sensing the magical energies beginning to gather around her. Saving my cousin, Gwen replied, her eyes glowing with pure mana as the spell took effect. Pink energy erupted from her hands, forming intricate patterns that expanded outward to encompass both Ben and Albedo. The runes and symbols from the ancient text materialized in the air, rotating around them in concentric circles. No! Albedo shouted, recognizing the nature of the spell. You'll disrupt the fusion harmonics. That's the idea, Gwen replied through gritted teeth, the strain of the powerful spell evident in her voice. The magical energy intensified, creating a resonance field that interacted with the fusion energies of both Ben and Albedo. Ben felt the effect immediately, a stabilizing influence that helped align the competing alien consciousnesses in his mind, reducing the chaos to manageable levels. But for Albedo, the effect was different. His supposedly perfect omni-fusion began to show cracks, the harmonization disrupted by Gwen's counter-ritual. What have you done? He snarled as his form flickered, patches of different aliens separating rather than blending. The spell creates true harmony, Gwen explained, maintaining the ritual despite the immense strain. It reveals whether a fusion is balanced or forced. Yours may be powerful, Albedo, but it's built on domination, not cooperation. Albedo roared in frustration, launching a desperate attack at Gwen to disrupt the spell. But Ben, his fusion now temporarily stabilized by the ritual's effect, intercepted. Not happening, Ben declared, his voice still multi-toned but now harmonious rather than discordant. With newfound clarity, he channeled his alien's powers with precision rather than chaos, creating a crystal shield reinforced by Gravitax's gravitational field to block Albedo's assault. You cannot defeat me. Albedo insisted, though his form continued to destabilize under the influence of Gwen's spell. I have achieved what you never could. Maybe, Ben conceded. But you forgot something important. He pressed his advantage, pushing Albedo back toward the central platform where the machinery continued to pulse with energy. And what's that? Albedo sneered, still fighting despite his deteriorating form. I've had the Omnitrix a lot longer than you've had the Ultimatrix, Ben replied. And I've learned a few tricks. With that, Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, but instead of changing forms, he activated a special command sequence, one he'd learned from Azimuth during their training sessions. Omnitrix, Genetic Feedback Loop, Authorization Tennyson Prime. The Omnitrix pulsed with intense green light, sending out a wave of energy that connected with Albedo's Ultimatrix. The red device on Albedo's chest sparked and sputtered as the feedback loop disrupted its operations. No. What are you doing? Albedo cried, his omni-fusion form beginning to break apart more rapidly. The Omnitrix and Ultimatrix share core programming, Ben explained, maintaining the connection despite the strain. Your device is just a knockoff of mine, which means I can trigger its safety protocols if I try hard enough. The Ultimatrix flashed warning symbols as Albedo's omni-fusion continued to unravel. Combined with Gwen's stabilizing ritual, the feedback loop was forcing a reset of Albedo's device. You'll pay for this, Tennyson. Albedo snarled as his form began to collapse. I was perfect. I was, his words cut off as the omni-fusion finally broke down completely. Red light erupted from the Ultimatrix, and Albedo's form reverted, not to his usual human appearance, but to a chaotic mix of partial transformations, his body unable to fully reintegrate after the failed omni-fusion. The energy backlash was immediate and catastrophic. The machinery connected to the central platform overloaded, conduits rupturing as power surged beyond containment levels. The entire facility began to shake violently, support structures failing throughout the chamber. We need to get out of here. Kevin shouted, racing to Gwen's side as she collapsed from the strain of maintaining her spell. He lifted her into his arms as Rook joined them. Ben, still in his fusion form, though more stable thanks to Gwen's ritual, grabbed the semi-conscious Albedo. What about him? Bring him, Rook decided. He cannot be left here to die, regardless of his crimes. They raced through the collapsing facility, dodging falling debris and energy discharges as systems failed catastrophically around them. Ben used his fusion abilities to clear paths and protect the others, while Rook navigated them back toward their entry point. "The Proto-TRUK is still in the maintenance bay," Rook reported as they ran. "But we have less than 3 minutes before total structural failure of this facility." "Then we'd better run faster," Ben replied, channeling XLR-8 speed to scout ahead and clear obstacles. They reached the maintenance bay just as a massive tremor shook the entire moon base. Kevin loaded Gwen into the ship while Rook started the engines. Ben threw Albedo in before jumping aboard himself. "Go, go, go," he urged as the ceiling began to collapse. Rook piloted the Proto-TRUK through the failing airlock, narrowly escaping as the facility imploded behind them. A shock wave of released energy buffeted the ship, sending them tumbling through space before Rook regained control. "Everyone all right?" Ben asked, finally allowing his fusion form to dissipate. The green light washed over him, returning him to human form, though he immediately collapsed to his knees, utterly exhausted. "Define, all right," Kevin muttered, tending to the still unconscious Gwen. "That spell took a lot out of her." "And you?" Rook asked Ben. "That was an extremely dangerous fusion you attempted." "Yeah, remind me not to try that again anytime soon," Ben groaned, his head pounding. "Feels like my brain went 10 rounds with wrath and lost every one." They all turned to look at Albedo, who lay restrained in the corner of the ship. His form was still unstable, shifting unpredictably between different alien aspects though he remained unconscious. "What do we do with him?" Kevin asked. "Containment at Plumber HQ," Rook decided. "Once we determine if his condition can be stabilized." Ben nodded weakly, too exhausted to argue. The Omnitrix on his wrist beeped softly, running self-diagnostics after the intense strain it had endured. "Ben Tennyson," a familiar voice suddenly echoed through the ship, causing everyone to tense. A small portal opened in the center of the cabin, and the curator stepped halfway through, his iridescent form shimmering with power. "You continue to exceed expectations," the curator said, his eyes fixed on Ben. "Defeating Albedo's omnifusion was impressive. What do you want?" Ben asked warily, trying to rise despite his exhaustion. "Merely to observe, for now," the curator replied. "Albedo's approach to omnifusion was flawed, brute force rather than true harmony." "But you..." His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You found a different path. Temporary, unstable, yet effective. Is there a point to this visit?" Kevin demanded, moving protectively in front of Gwen. The curator smiled. "Consider it a courtesy call. Events are accelerating, Benjamin Tennyson. Your connection to the Omnitrix is evolving in ways even Azimuth did not anticipate. And you're still hoping to add me to your collection," Ben surmised. "In time," the curator conceded. "But not yet. You're still developing. When you achieve true omnifusion, and you will, eventually, then we'll have much to discuss." Before anyone could respond, the curator stepped back through his portal, which closed with a soft implosion of air. "I really don't like that guy," Kevin muttered. Ben slumped back against the wall, the encounter with the curator having drained what little energy he had left. "Join the club. We should return to Earth immediately," Rook suggested, already plotting the course. "Azimuth will want to examine both you and the Omnitrix, and Albedo requires specialized containment." Ben nodded, his eyes already closing as exhaustion claimed him. "Wake me when we get there, or if any other cosmic collectors decide to drop by for a chat." As he drifted into unconsciousness, his mind was still buzzing with the echoes of the 15 alien consciousnesses he briefly united. The experience had been terrifying yet illuminating, a glimpse of what true omnifusion might feel like if properly achieved. And despite the dangers, a part of him couldn't help but wonder, what if the curator was right? What if he was meant to achieve true omnifusion eventually? The thought followed him into dreams filled with alien worlds and endless possibilities. Ben awoke in the medical bay of Plumber HQ, the familiar beeping of monitoring equipment surrounding him. His head still ached, but the chaotic mental pressure of the multiple fusion had subsided to a dull background hum. Finally awake, I see, Asmatha's voice came from nearby. Ben turned to see the Galvan inventor standing on a hovering platform beside the bed, monitoring various readings from the equipment. How long was I out? Ben asked, his voice hoarse. Approximately 32 hours, Asmath replied. Your neural patterns required time to reintegrate properly after the strain you put them through. Ben winced. Sorry about that. I didn't have much choice. No, you didn't, Asmath conceded, surprising Ben with his lack of admonishment. The feedback from your Omnitrix has provided valuable data. Your 15-way fusion should have been impossible, yet you maintained it for over 7 minutes, long enough to defeat Albedo. Gwen helped, Ben pointed out. Her spell did something to stabilize it. Yes, the anodite harmonization ritual, Asmath nodded. Fascinating application. It created a temporary resonance field that aligned the conflicting consciousness patterns in your mind. Is she okay? Ben asked, suddenly concerned for his cousin. Recovering, like yourself, Asmath assured him. The spell required significant energy, but she's resilient. Ben relaxed slightly, then remembered their other passenger. What about Albedo? Asmatha's expression darkened. His condition is complicated. The failed omnifusion damaged his DNA at a fundamental level. His form remains unstable, shifting between different alien aspects unpredictably. Can you fix him? Perhaps, given time, Asmath said. The Ultimatrix has been removed and contained. Without it, his transformations should eventually stabilize, though he may never fully return to his original Galvan form. Ben was quiet for a moment, processing this. Despite everything Albedo had done, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for his nemesis. And the curator? He finally asked. Any sign of him since we got back? None, Asmath replied. Though I've implemented additional security measures throughout Plumber facilities, just in case. Ben nodded, then asked the question that had been lingering in his mind since he woke up. The neural integration protocol, is it still active? Asmath studied him for a moment before answering. Yes. I consider deactivating it after your reckless fusion attempt, but the data suggests your mind has actually adapted quite well to the multiple consciousness patterns. Removing them abruptly might cause more harm than good at this point. So I still have alien thoughts in my head, Ben confirmed. To an extent, yes, Asmath said. Though the neural buffer has been reinforced to prevent overwhelming input. You should find the alien influences more manageable now, subtle guidance rather than competing voices. Ben focused inward, testing this. Indeed, the alien consciousnesses felt different, integrated rather than separate, their perspectives blending with his own in a way that enhanced rather than conflicted. It's strange, he admitted. But not in a bad way. It's like having more angles to see things from. Precisely the intended effect, Asmath said, sounding pleased. With proper adaptation, the neural integration should enhance your ability to utilize fusion forms effectively. So I can keep training with the fusions? Ben asked hopefully. Under strict supervision, Asmath emphasized. The 15-way fusion you attempted was extremely dangerous, but it demonstrated your potential for higher-level integration. We'll proceed with caution, advancing to triple fusions only when you've mastered all possible dual combinations. Ben wanted to argue for faster progression but knew better than to push his luck. Sounds fair. Asmath regarded him thoughtfully. The curator's interest in you is concerning. His knowledge of omnifusion likely exceeds even my own, given his multiversal perspective. You think he'll come back for me? Ben asked. Eventually, yes, Asmath confirmed. The question is whether his interest is purely acquisitive or if there's some larger purpose we don't yet understand. Before Ben could respond, the door to the medical bay slid open, and Gwen entered, followed by Kevin and Rook. "Ben!" Gwen exclaimed, rushing to his bedside. "You're awake." "Takes more than a 15 alien pileup in my brain to keep me down," Ben quipped, though he was genuinely happy to see his cousin on her feet. "You okay? That was some serious mojo you pulled back there." "I'm fine," Gwen assured him. "Just needed to recharge my magical batteries." "Your cousin's spell was quite remarkable," Azimuth told Ben. "The principles of anodite harmonization could be adapted to improve the Omnitrix's fusion protocols." "See? Told you magic and science work great together," Ben grinned at Azimuth, who merely harumphed in response. "How's your head?" Kevin asked, studying Ben with unusual concern. "Rook said you were talking in your sleep, in like, 5 different alien languages." "Was I?" Ben blinked in surprise. "I don't remember that." "Linguistic bleed-through from the neural integration," Azimuth explained. "A side effect that should diminish as your mind continues to adapt. Unless you want to keep the alien language skills," Rook suggested. "They could prove quite useful in diplomatic situations." Ben shrugged. "I guess having an inner brainstorm in gray matter isn't all bad if it helps me ace my language classes." A comfortable silence fell over the group, broken only when Grandpa Max entered the room. "Good to see you awake, Ben," he said warmly. "You had us worried for a while there." "Sorry about that," Ben replied. "But hey, we stopped albedo, right? Mission accomplished." "For now," Max agreed. "But the curator's appearance on your return journey suggests this isn't over." "It rarely is," Ben sighed. "So what's next?" "More training. More neural whatevers." "Rest, first," Azimuth insisted. "Then we'll resume training with a modified protocol based on what we've learned. Your mind has demonstrated remarkable adaptability, but pushing too far too fast would be foolish. And in the meantime," Grandpa Max added, "we'll be investigating everything we can about the curator. If he's planning something beyond just adding you to his collection, we need to know what it is." Ben nodded, though a part of him wondered if they'd find anything useful. The curator seemed to operate on a level beyond even Azimuth's understanding, a concerning thought. "For what it's worth," Gwen spoke up, "the ancient texts I've been studying mention collectors like the curator. They're described as archivists of reality, beings who preserve pieces of existence they deem worthy or unique." "Preserve how, exactly?" Kevin asked skeptically. "By removing them from the normal flow of time and space," Gwen explained. "The texts say these collections exist in pocket dimensions where nothing changes or ages, perfect preservation, but also a kind of prison." "That confirms my suspicions," Azimuth said grimly. "The curator doesn't merely want the Omnitrix or even Ben, he wants the potential of omnifusion itself, preserved in his collection for eternity." "Well, he can't have it," Ben said firmly. "Or me." "Indeed," Azimuth agreed. "Which is why your training must continue, carefully and methodically. If the curator returns, we must be prepared." As the others discussed plans for enhanced security and continued research, Ben found his thoughts drifting. The experience of the 15-way fusion, though chaotic and painful, had given him a glimpse of something greater, a potential within the Omnitrix he'd never fully understood before. The alien consciousnesses in his mind seemed to resonate with this thought, their perspectives blending with his in subtle ways that expanded his understanding. Perhaps true omnifusion wasn't about domination or control, as albedo had attempted, but something else entirely, a harmony of differences, a unity that preserved rather than suppressed individuality. It was a concept that felt just beyond his grasp, like a word on the tip of his tongue or a melody half remembered. But with each passing moment, as his mind continued to adapt to the neural integration, that understanding grew clearer. Whatever the curator had planned, whatever challenges lay ahead, Ben knew one thing with certainty: the path to mastering omnifusion wouldn't be found through shortcuts or forced integration, but through something much more fundamental: understanding. Not just of the Omnitrix or alien DNA, but of himself and how he connected to it all. That was a journey worth taking, wherever it might lead. Chapter 3, Unity. Ben stood at the center of the Plumber HQ training room, eyes closed in deep concentration. For weeks had passed since the confrontation with Albedo, and things had changed dramatically. The neural integration protocol had become second nature now, 15 alien consciousness patterns harmoniously blending with his own mind, offering insights and perspectives that expanded his thinking in ways he'd never imagined. Focus, Ben, Azimuth instructed from his hovering platform. Triple fusion requires perfect balance between all consciousness patterns. Ben nodded, not opening his eyes as he activated the Omnitrix. He'd mastered all possible dual combinations over the past month and had finally convinced Azimuth to let him attempt triple fusions again, under strictly controlled conditions, of course. The familiar green light washed over him as he transformed, combining Diamond Head, Heat Blast, and XLR-8 into a sleek, crystalline speedster wreathed in controlled flames. Unlike his previous desperate attempt at multiple fusion, this transformation felt smooth and natural, the three alien minds blending harmoniously with his own. Yes! Ben exclaimed, his triple-toned voice echoing in the chamber. Got it on the first try. Don't celebrate yet, Azimuth cautioned, though Ben could detect a hint of pride in the Galvan's voice. Maintaining stability is harder than achieving the initial transformation. Ben took a deep breath, focusing on the mental technique Gwen had taught him, visualizing his core consciousness as a central hub with the alien minds as satellites in perfect orbit, connected yet distinct. Stability at 94%, Rook reported from the monitoring station. Impressive for a first attempt. Let's test it out, Ben suggested, eager to put the new fusion through its paces. Azimuth nodded, activating the training room's obstacle course. Immediately, combat drones deployed from wall panels while the floor reconfigured into a complex terrain of varying elevations and surfaces. Ben shot forward with XLR-8's incredible speed, weaving through laser fire while Diamond Head's crystalline body deflected direct hits. When he reached the first group of drones, he channeled Heat Blast's power through his crystal structure, creating superheated shards that he launched with devastating precision. The synergy between the three aliens is much better than anticipated, Azimuth noted as Ben continued through the course, combining his abilities in increasingly creative ways, creating crystal ramps to launch himself at high speeds, generating heat trails that melted obstacles in his path, forming crystal structures that focused and amplified his flame blasts. Gwen and Kevin watched from the observation area, impressed by Ben's progress. He's finally getting the hang of it, Kevin remarked. Remember when he first tried triple fusion and nearly turned his brain to mush? He's been working harder than I've ever seen him, Gwen replied. The meditation techniques are helping, but it's mostly just Ben being focused. Yeah, what's up with that? Kevin asked. No video games, no slacking off, no complaining about training. It's like he's been replaced by a pod person. Gwen smiled slightly. I think facing Albedo and seeing what could happen with uncontrolled fusion power was a wake-up call. Plus, there's the curator. They fell silent at the mention of the interdimensional collector. Despite weeks of research and monitoring, there had been no further sign of him since his brief appearance on their return journey from the Andromeda Galaxy. But his absence didn't mean he was gone, only waiting, watching. In the training area, Ben completed the obstacle course in record time, landing gracefully in the center of the room as the simulation powered down. Stability maintained at 92% throughout the entire exercise, Rook reported, clearly impressed. Previous projections suggested maximum stability of 85% for initial triple fusion attempts. The neural integration protocol has exceeded expectations, Azimuth acknowledged. Your mind has adapted to the multiple consciousness patterns remarkably well, Ben. Ben allowed himself a moment of pride before reverting to human form. The transformation back was smooth, leaving him energized rather than exhausted, another sign of his growing mastery. So what's next? He asked eagerly. Four-way fusion. Azimuth's expression immediately soured. Don't push your luck. Triple fusion is already advancing faster than scheduled. We need to ensure complete stability before even considering more complex combinations. But I feel great, Ben insisted. The alien minds aren't fighting each other anymore, they're working together, showing me how their powers can combine in ways I never thought of before. That's precisely why caution is necessary, Azimuth countered. The more harmonious the integration becomes, the easier it is to lose yourself in it. Even with 15 consciousnesses partially integrated, you're experiencing significant changes in your thought patterns and abilities. Is that such a bad thing? Ben challenged. I'm still me, just more. Before Azimuth could respond, an alarm blared throughout the base. Grandpa Max's voice came over the intercom, security breach in detention level 5. All available personnel respond immediately. Ben and the others exchanged worried glances. Detention level 5 is where, Gwen began. Albedo, Ben finished, already running for the door with the others close behind. The detention level was chaos when they arrived. Security barriers had been breached, plumber officers lay unconscious in the corridors, and the distinct crackle of energy weapons echoed from deeper in the facility. What happened? Ben demanded of a plumber medic who was tending to the downed officers. Some kind of dimensional breach, the medic reported. 1 minute everything was normal, the next these weird robot things were everywhere. Adaptoids, Ben realized with a sinking feeling. The curator's troops. As if confirming his suspicion, 3 adaptoid robots rounded the corner ahead, sleek, modular machines with shifting components that reconfigured as they moved. They spotted the group immediately, optical sensors flashing as they analyzed the new targets. Stand back, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. Time to try that triple fusion in real combat. He quickly selected the combination he'd just been practicing, Diamond Head, Heat Blast, and XLR-8, and transformed in a flash of green light. You guys head for Albedo's cell, Ben instructed, his voice once again a harmonic blend of the 3 aliens. I'll handle the welcome committee. Be careful, Gwen warned. Remember what happened last time we fought these things, they adapt to whatever you throw at them. Then I'll just have to keep changing things up, Ben replied with confidence, before racing toward the adaptoids at superhuman speed. The robots immediately reconfigured, their limbs extending into hook-like appendages designed to counter XLR-8's velocity. But Ben had anticipated this, abruptly switching tactics to launch superheated crystal shards at their joints. The adaptoid's armor began to adapt, becoming more heat-resistant and flexible to absorb the impacts. Let's see you adapt to this, Ben challenged, creating a massive crystal structure around the robots, then superheating it from the inside out while running circles to generate a vortex effect. The combination created a crystalline inferno that melted the robot's core components before they could fully adapt. Without pausing to admire his handiwork, Ben raced deeper into the detention level, catching up to the others as they reached Albedo's cell, or what was left of it. The reinforced door had been torn open, and the specialized containment field inside was deactivated. We're too late, Rook said grimly. He's gone. But who took him? Kevin wondered, examining the damaged door. These marks don't match the adaptoid's tech. A slow clap echoed from behind them. They turned to see the curator standing at the end of the corridor, his iridescent form seeming to shift colors with each movement. Excellent deduction, the curator said smoothly. The adaptoids were merely a distraction. I retrieved Albedo personally. Why? Ben demanded, moving protectively in front of his friends. What do you want with him? The curator smiled, the expression unervingly serene. His unique condition makes him valuable, a being caught between stability and chaos, transformation locked in perpetual flux. A perfect addition to my collection. That's it? You just want another trophy? Ben asked skeptically. Initially, yes, the curator admitted. But upon further study, I realized Albedo serves a greater purpose. His unstable DNA resonates with certain artifacts in my collection, creating possibilities I hadn't previously considered. Gwen's hands began to glow with mana. Whatever you're planning, it stops here. The curator seemed amused by her threat. You misunderstand. I'm not here to fight, I came to extend a final invitation to Ben Tennyson before events reach their inevitable conclusion. What events? Ben asked warily. Albedo's unstable condition is deteriorating rapidly, the curator explained. Without proper containment, the fusion energy within him will reach critical mass within hours, creating a cascade failure that will ripple across multiple realities. And you're just letting this happen? Kevin asked incredulously. On the contrary, the curator replied. I've placed him in temporary stasis while I offer Ben one last chance to join my collection willingly. With your combined knowledge of the Omnitrix and fusion capabilities, you could stabilize Albedo permanently, preserving two unique specimens rather than losing both. Both? Ben repeated. The destabilization event will target individuals with similar energy signatures first, the curator explained calmly. Meaning you, Ben Tennyson, will be the first casualty when Albedo's fusion energy cascades. Your Omnitrix will attempt to protect you by initiating emergency protocols, including forced omnifusion, but without proper preparation, the result will be unpleasant. This sounds suspiciously like you engineered this whole situation, Azimuth accused, hovering forward on his platform. The curator merely smiled. I am a collector, not a creator. I merely recognize opportunities when they arise. And if I refuse your invitation? Ben asked. Then you have approximately 6 hours to solve the problem yourself, the curator said with a slight shrug. I've left Albedo in the old Plummer satellite outpost orbiting Earth's moon, accessible, but sufficiently isolated should containment prove impossible. Why tell us this? Rook asked suspiciously. If you truly want Ben in your collection, why give us the opportunity to resolve the situation independently? Because a specimen that joins willingly is always more valuable than one taken by force, the curator replied simply. And because, regardless of the outcome, I find Ben Tennyson's potential fascinating. Whether you succeed or fail, the results will be worthy of observation. With that, the curator raised his staff, creating a swirling portal beside him. 6 hours, Ben Tennyson. After that, even my technologies cannot contain the cascade. He stepped through the portal, which closed silently behind him. For a moment, everyone stood in stunned silence. Well, that wasn't ominous at all, Kevin finally said, breaking the tension. Is what he said about Albedo true? Ben asked, turning to Azimuth. Could his unstable fusion really cause some kind of cross-dimensional catastrophe? Azimuth's expression was grave. Theoretically, yes. If Albedo's condition has deteriorated as the curator suggests, the uncontrolled fusion energy could indeed trigger a cascade effect, targeting similar energy signatures across reality branches. And the Omnitrix would try to protect me by initiating omnifusion, Ben realized. Which would probably kill me if it happened without preparation. More likely tear you and a significant portion of the local spacetime continuum apart, Azimuth corrected grimly. The curator's warning, self-serving as it may be, should not be dismissed. Then we go to this satellite outpost and fix Albedo, Ben said decisively. How hard can it be? Azimuth gave him a withering look. Stabilizing an individual suffering from complete genetic breakdown across multiple alien DNA samples. With limited equipment and a 6-hour deadline. Nearly impossible. You've done nearly impossible before, Ben pointed out. With proper facilities and time, yes, Azimuth countered. Neither of which we have in abundance. Grandpa Max joined them, having secured the rest of the detention level. The Proto-TRUK can get you to the lunar outpost in under an hour. We can send whatever equipment Azimuth needs separately. I'll need to access my lab on Galvan Prime for critical components, Azimuth said. That will take additional time. Which we don't have, Ben reminded him. We need another solution. Gwen had been quietly thinking, and now she spoke up. What about using the same harmonization spell I used before? If Albedo's problem is unstable fusion energy, maybe I can help contain it long enough for Azimuth to work on a permanent solution. Azimuth considered this. The anodite ritual did demonstrate remarkable effectiveness in stabilizing fusion energy during your confrontation with albedo. It might buy us the time we need. And I've been practicing, Gwen added. I think I can maintain it longer this time. It's worth trying, Ben agreed. Better than waiting around for the curator to collect us both. I'll coordinate from here, Grandpa Max decided. And prepare contingencies in case things don't go as planned. Ben nodded, understanding the unspoken concern. If they failed to stabilize albedo, the consequences would extend far beyond just the two of them. Then let's move, he said, reverting to human form. Time's wasting. The lunar outpost was an old plumber facility, established decades ago as an early warning system for alien threats approaching Earth. Long since superseded by more advanced technologies, it had been largely abandoned except for occasional use as a storage facility or emergency shelter. As the proto-TRUK docked with the airlock, Ben felt a strange sensation, a pulling at his awareness, like the resonance he'd experienced during their confrontation with albedo in the Andromeda Galaxy, but much stronger. You feel that? He asked Gwen, who nodded grimly. Fusion energy, and lots of it, she confirmed. It's chaotic. Uncontrolled. The Omnitrix is detecting significant genetic flux, Azimuth added, monitoring readings from a device he'd brought. Consistent with catastrophic failure of multiple DNA binding sequences. English, please. Kevin requested as they prepared to enter the outpost. Albedo is falling apart at a molecular level, Azimuth clarified. His borrowed DNA is unraveling. They cycled through the airlock into the outpost itself. Emergency lighting cast the corridors in dim red illumination, and the air tasted stale despite the life support system still functioning. The energy signature is coming from the main observatory, Rook reported, checking his proto-tools scanner. Approximately 60 meters ahead. Ben led the way, the Omnitrix on his wrist pulsing with increasing intensity as they approached. The 15 alien consciousnesses integrated with his mind seemed agitated, responding to the chaotic energy ahead. The observatory was a large circular chamber with a transparent dome ceiling offering a spectacular view of Earth hanging in space above them. But none of them were looking at the view. Their attention was fixed on what waited at the center of the room. Suspended within a shimmering energy field was albedo, or what remained of him. His form was barely recognizable, shifting continuously between dozens of alien aspects. One moment he appeared partially pyronite, the next he showed tetraman features, then galvanic mechamorph, then aerophibian, the transformations cycling faster than the eye could follow. His ultimatrix was gone, but his chest glowed with unstable red energy where the device had been. The curator wasn't exaggerating, Azimuth said softly. His condition is far worse than I anticipated. Surrounding albedo were strange devices of obviously alien design, sleek, curved technology that hummed with power, maintaining the stasis field around him. Curator tech. Kevin guessed, examining one of the devices without touching it. Indeed, Azimuth confirmed. Highly advanced temporal stasis generators. They're slowing the degradation process, but not halting it completely. Ben approached the stasis field cautiously. As he got closer, albedo's shifting form seemed to react, the transformations briefly synchronizing toward Ben's direction before resuming their chaotic cycle. He knows I'm here, Ben realized. Some part of him is still conscious. Gwen joined him, her hands already glowing with mana as she prepared her spell. The fusion energy is building faster than the stasis field can contain it. We don't have much time. Can you stabilize him? Ben asked. I can try, Gwen replied, not sounding entirely confident. But his condition is much worse than when I attempted the spell before. I might only be able to slow the process, not stop it. Any delay helps, Azimuth said, already setting up equipment he'd brought from Plumber HQ, even an hour could give me time to devise a more permanent solution. Gwen nodded and began the ritual, her eyes glowing as she chanted in the ancient Anodite language. Pink energy flowed from her hands, forming intricate patterns that expanded to encompass Albedo's stasis field. The runes and symbols from the ancient text materialized in the air, rotating around the chaotic form. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Albedo's transformation slowed, becoming less erratic. But then a surge of red energy pulsed from his form, disrupting the mana patterns. Gwen gasped, staggering backward from the feedback. "It's too unstable," she said, her voice strained. "The fusion energy is fighting the harmonization effect." "Keep trying," Ben urged. "Maybe if I help somehow." "No," Azimuth said sharply. "Your Omnitrix would only complicate matters. The resonance between your device and Albedo's condition could accelerate the cascade." Kevin helped Gwen steady herself as she tried again, pouring more power into the spell. The mana patterns grew stronger, pushing back against the chaotic energy, but it was clearly taking a tremendous toll on her. "I can't hold it much longer," she admitted after several minutes, sweat beading on her forehead. Azimuth, meanwhile, was working frantically with the equipment he'd brought, occasionally glancing at readings from both Albedo's condition and the curator's stasis generators. "The degradation is accelerating despite our efforts," he reported grimly. "At this rate, we have less than 2 hours before critical mass is reached." "What about shutting down the Omnitrix?" Kevin suggested. "If Ben's the target of this cascade thing, maybe taking the Omnitrix offline would help." "Impossible," Azimuth replied. "The Omnitrix is genetically bonded to Ben at this point. Even if we could remove it physically, the energy signature would remain. So what options do we have?" Rook asked, ever practical. Azimuth was silent for a long moment, his expression troubled. "There is one possibility," he finally said. "Though I hesitate to suggest it. Whatever it is, it's better than waiting around to get erased from reality," Ben pointed out. "Perhaps," Azimuth said doubtfully. "The neural integration protocol you've been using, it's created pathways in your mind that could potentially support a controlled omnifusion." "You mean combining all my aliens at once?" Ben asked, excitement mixing with apprehension. "You said that was too dangerous." "It is," Azimuth confirmed. "Under normal circumstances, the strain would be catastrophic. But given your accelerated adaptation and the immediate threat, it may be our only viable option." "How would omnifusion help Albedo?" Gwen asked skeptically. "It wouldn't, directly," Azimuth explained. "But a properly executed omnifusion might create a stable counterpoint to Albedo's chaotic fusion energy, essentially providing a template that his unstable DNA could use to realign itself. Like using a tuning fork to fix an out-of-tune instrument," Ben suggested, drawing on gray matter's knowledge in his integrated mind. "A simplistic but not inaccurate analogy," Azimuth conceded. "The risk, however, is enormous. If you lose control of the omnifusion, you could accelerate the cascade rather than preventing it." Ben looked at Albedo's suffering form, then at his friends, who were watching him with varying expressions of concern. "What choice do we have? If the curator's right, we're out of time and options." "There must be another way," Gwen insisted. "Ben, omnifusion nearly killed you when you tried to combine just 15 aliens. The Omnitrix has hundreds." "I know the risks," Ben said quietly. "But I also know what happens if we do nothing. And I'm not the same person who tried that desperate fusion against Albedo. I've been training, adapting. The neural integration has changed how I connect with the aliens." "It's still an unprecedented risk," Azimuth warned. "Even with your training, the mental strain of harmonizing all alien consciousness patterns simultaneously is beyond anything you've prepared for." "Then help me prepare now," Ben challenged. "We've got what, 2 hours? That's 2 hours to figure out how to make this work." Azimuth studied Ben's determined expression, then sighed. "Very well. But we do this methodically, with every possible safeguard." While Gwen continued her efforts to slow Albedo's degradation, Azimuth worked with Ben to prepare for the omnifusion attempt. They configured the Omnitrix with specialized protocols, reviewed mental focusing techniques, and planned a step-by-step approach to the transformation. The key difference between this attempt and Albedo's failed omnifusion is intention, Azimuth explained. Albedo sought to dominate the alien consciousness patterns, forcing them to obey his will. You must do the opposite, serve as a conductor for their harmonization, not their master. Like an orchestra conductor, Ben suggested. Not playing every instrument myself, but helping them all play together. Yes, Azimuth nodded, pleased by the analogy. Your core consciousness must remain distinct yet connected to all the others, the central hub in a vast network. As they worked, Kevin and Rook monitored the curator's stasis generators, making adjustments as needed to maintain their effectiveness for as long as possible. These things are starting to overload, Kevin reported after the first hour. Whatever they're holding back is getting stronger. The degradation is accelerating despite our countermeasures, Azimuth confirmed grimly. We have perhaps 40 minutes before the cascade begins. Gwen, exhausted from maintaining her spell, finally had to stop. I can't hold it any longer, she admitted, collapsing into a chair. The energy is just too chaotic. Ben looked at his cousin with concern. Rest. You've bought us valuable time. Not enough, she replied, frustration evident in her voice. Be careful, Ben. This omnifusion, it's not like anything you've done before. I know, he assured her. But I've got to try. With their preparation time running out, Azimuth made final adjustments to the Omnitrix. The device is configured for graduated omnifusion, beginning with the aliens you're most familiar with and gradually incorporating the others. This should allow your mind to adapt more effectively than an instantaneous merge. Ben nodded, taking a deep breath as he positioned himself near Albedo's stasis field. Anything else I should know before I try this? Only that no one has ever attempted what you're about to do, Azimuth said solemnly. The theoretical models suggest your consciousness will experience expansion beyond normal perception. Try to maintain your core identity no matter what you see or feel. Got it. Don't lose myself in the alien mind meld, Ben summarized. Everyone stand back. If this goes wrong. It won't, Gwen said firmly, though worry was clear in her eyes. You've got this, Ben. With a final nod to his friends, Ben activated the Omnitrix, engaging the special omnifusion protocol Azimuth had programmed. The transformation began differently than any before, the green light emerging slowly, wrapping around him like a cocoon rather than the usual flash. Ben closed his eyes, focusing on Gwen's meditation technique as alien consciousness patterns began flooding into his awareness, first the familiar 15 he'd been training with, then others, dozens more joining in rapid succession. Each brought its own perspective, abilities, memories, instincts, all threatening to overwhelm his human mind. But instead of fighting against them or trying to control them, Ben embraced the technique Azimuth had emphasized, serving as a conductor, a central point of harmony rather than control. He visualized his consciousness as an open hub, welcoming each alien mind, acknowledging its uniqueness while guiding it into resonance with the others. The physical transformation, meanwhile, was unlike anything the others had witnessed. Ben's form shifted continuously, fragments of different aliens appearing and merging in fluid combinations, heat blasts flames dancing along 4 arms musculature, diamond heads crystals flowing like Goop's fluid body, XLR-8 speed merging with Gravitax's gravitational control. But unlike Albedo's chaotic transformations, these changes followed patterns, harmonizing rather than conflicting. Remarkable, Azimuth breathed, monitoring the process. He's actually doing it, creating harmony between consciousness patterns that should be completely incompatible. Is it working? Kevin asked, unable to tell from the swirling mass of green energy that Ben had become. Too early to tell, Azimuth replied. The omnifusion is still progressing. Only about 30% of the Omnitrix's alien catalog has been integrated so far. Within the transformation, Ben experienced existence on a level he'd never imagined. Each alien consciousness added new dimensions to his perception, Wildmutt's sensory awareness, gray matter's intellectual capacity, Ghost Freak's understanding of dimensional phasing, Way Big's cosmic perspective, all blending together into something greater than the sum of its parts. Time seemed to slow, then stop entirely as his mind expanded beyond normal constraints. He could perceive energy flows, DNA structures, even the subtle quantum fluctuations that connected all matter. And at the center of this expanded awareness was albedo, a chaotic maelstrom of misaligned energy, DNA fragments fighting against each other in perpetual conflict. Ben understood now what needed to be done. Not force, not control, but harmony, showing albedo's fragmented consciousness how the pieces could fit together. Using his own omnifusion as a template, a guide for the scattered energies to follow. Outside, the others watched as Ben's transformation continued, his form stabilizing into something new, a humanoid figure composed of seamlessly blended alien aspects, glowing with green energy that pulsed in complex patterns throughout his body. The Omnitrix symbol at his center shone with blinding intensity. Omnifusion at 60% and holding stable, Azimuth reported, amazement clear in his voice. Consciousness patterns in remarkable harmony. Ben. Gwen called tentatively. Can you hear us? When Ben spoke, his voice was unlike anything they'd heard before, a perfect harmonic blend of countless alien tones, yet still recognizably Ben. I hear you. I see everything. The cascade is beginning, Rook warned, pointing to albedo's stasis field, where red energy was now pulsing violently against the containment. The generators are failing. Ben, whatever you're going to do it now, Azimuth urged. Ben's omnifusion form approached the stasis field, raising hands that seemed to shift between different alien appendages while maintaining a coherent structure. I know what to do, he said, his harmonic voice resonating throughout the chamber. Green energy flowed from his hands, connecting with the red energy surrounding albedo. Where they met, patterns formed, complex, fractal designs that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, visible yet somehow beyond normal perception. He's creating a harmonization field, Azimuth realized. Using the omnifusion as a pattern template for albedo's chaotic energy. Is it working? Kevin asked. I'm not sure, Azimuth admitted. This is beyond anything I've theorized. The interaction between the green and red energies intensified, the patterns becoming more complex, spreading throughout the chamber. Reality itself seemed to waver, space and time bending around the 2 fusion beings as their energies interacted. Something's happening, Gwen warned, her eyes glowing as she sensed the shifting energies. The dimensional barriers are thinning. As if responding to her observation, a familiar portal opened at the edge of the chamber. The curator stepped through, his expression showing genuine surprise for the first time. Fascinating, he remarked, studying Ben's omnifusion form. You've achieved true harmonization much sooner than I anticipated. You knew this would happen, Azimuth accused. This was your plan all along. Not precisely, the curator replied. I expected Benjamin to attempt omnifusion, yes, but I didn't expect him to succeed so elegantly. Most beings approach fusion as albedo did, through dominance and control. Ben has discovered the true path, harmony and integration. Ben's trying to save albedo, Gwen said. Not become part of your collection. The 2 aren't mutually exclusive, the curator pointed out. What you're witnessing is a moment of singular uniqueness across the multiverse, a perfect omnifusion in resonance with a chaotic one. Such an event deserves preservation. Ben, still focused on stabilizing albedo, spoke without turning. Not interested in being preserved, curator. Just fixing what's broken. You don't understand what you've become, the curator insisted, approaching slowly. The omnifusion you've achieved transcends normal existence. In my collection, you could explore its potential eternally, without the constraints of linear time or single reality perception. Still sounds like a fancy prison, Ben replied, the harmonic tones of his voice unwavering. Thanks, but I'll pass. The energy exchange between Ben and albedo was intensifying, the pattern templates becoming more defined as Albedo's chaotic transformations gradually slowed, showing signs of alignment with the harmonious structure Ben was projecting. "It's working," Asmuth said with growing excitement. "The template is stabilizing Albedo's fusion degradation." The curator frowned, raising his staff. "I cannot allow this opportunity to be wasted." "The potential knowledge is not yours to take," Ben interrupted, finally turning to face him. In his omni-fusion form, Ben's eyes glowed with green light, shifting between the visual organs of countless alien species while maintaining a singular gaze of remarkable intensity. "I collected my first specimen 10,000 years ago," the curator said, his voice hardening. "I have preserved wonders that would have otherwise been lost to entropy. Your omni-fusion is too valuable to exist solely in this limited reality, subject to the whims of temporal decay." "That's not your decision to make," Ben replied. The curator's staff began to glow, energy building at its tip. "I beg to differ." Before he could act, however, something unexpected happened. Albedo's form suddenly stabilized, the chaotic shifting resolving into a coherent pattern that mirrored Ben's harmonious integration but with crimson energy instead of green. The stasis field shattered as Albedo regained consciousness, his eyes opening to reveal the same multi-species awareness that Ben's displayed. "What have you done to me?" Albedo asked, his voice also a harmonic blend, though discordant in comparison to Ben's perfect resonance. "Showed you how the pieces fit together," Ben explained simply. "Your omni-fusion was falling apart because you tried to control it. I just demonstrated a different approach." Albedo looked down at his stabilized form, a red energy version of Ben's omni-fusion, with slight variations reflecting his Ultimatrix origins. "I understand now. The harmony instead of dominance. It's beautiful," the curator finished, his attention now divided between the two omni-fusion beings. Two unique approaches to the same transformation, one born of cooperation, the other redeemed from chaos. "Even better than I had hoped." He raised his staff higher, the energy building to critical levels. "Both shall join my collection." But Albedo, to everyone's surprise, moved to stand beside Ben. "I think not," he said, red energy flowing from his hands to join Ben's green power. "I've spent too long seeking this power to surrender it now." The combined energy of the two omni-fusion beings created a shield around everyone in the chamber, blocking the curator's attempt to open a collection portal. For the first time, the interdimensional being showed signs of genuine anger. "You cannot defy me," he insisted. "I have collected beings with power that dwarfs your primitive transformations." "Maybe," Ben acknowledged. "But I bet you've never tried to collect two omni-fusion beings working together." The omni-fusion allowed Ben to perceive reality on levels he'd never imagined, including the true nature of the curator's collection dimension. He could see the connections, the pathways between realities, and most importantly, the weaknesses in the curator's methods. With a precision born from hundreds of alien intellects working in perfect harmony, Ben directed his energy at the curator's staff, not to destroy it, but to rewrite its collection protocols. Albedo, understanding Ben's intention through their resonant energies, added his power to the effort. "What are you doing?" the curator demanded as his staff began to vibrate strangely, patterns of green and red energy rewriting the swirling galaxy at its tip. "Creating a new rule for your collection," Ben explained, his omni-fusion consciousness easily multitasking between stabilizing Albedo and reprogramming the staff. "No sentient beings without their explicit consent. You want to preserve knowledge? Fine. But not at the cost of freedom. You cannot," the curator began, but stopped as his staff completed its transformation, the energy at its tip now a balanced blend of countless colors rather than the controlled singularity it had been before. "I believe we just did," Albedo said with a hint of his old smugness, though tempered by newfound understanding. The curator stared at his modified staff, genuine astonishment showing on his face. 10,000 years, no one has ever altered my collection parameters. Consider it an upgrade, Ben suggested. Now you can focus on preserving knowledge and wonders without kidnapping people. For a long moment, the curator was silent, studying the changes to his staff with an unreadable expression. Finally, he looked up at the two omnifusion beings. Perhaps, he conceded, there is wisdom in adaptation. My collection methods have remained unchanged for millennia, perhaps that is its own form of entropy. He inclined his head slightly. I will consider this new approach. Good, Ben said. Now, if you don't mind, we've got some recovery to do here. The curator nodded, stepping back toward his portal. We will meet again, Benjamin Tennyson. Your potential continues to exceed my expectations. With that, he departed, the portal closing silently behind him. As the immediate threat passed, Ben turned his attention back to Albedo, whose stabilized omnifusion was beginning to show signs of strain. You're not fully harmonized yet, he observed. Your consciousness patterns are aligned but not truly integrated. The Ultimatrix was designed to dominate alien DNA, not cooperate with it, Albedo admitted. Even without it, those patterns remain in my mind. I can help, Ben offered, surprising everyone, especially Albedo. Guide you toward true harmony. Why would you help me after everything I've done? Albedo asked suspiciously. Because nobody deserves to be torn apart by their own power, Ben replied simply. Even you. Before Albedo could respond, his omnifusion form flickered, pain crossing his features. It's destabilizing again, he gasped. Let me show you, Ben insisted, placing his hands on Albedo's shoulders. Green energy flowed between them, creating a deeper resonance that allowed Ben to guide Albedo's consciousness patterns toward true harmony. For several minutes, the two stood locked in this strange communion, energy flowing between them as Ben demonstrated the mental techniques he'd used to achieve omnifusion. Gradually, Albedo's form stabilized, the discordant elements of his fusion aligning into a more harmonious whole. I see it now, Albedo said with genuine wonder. All this time, I thought power came from control, from forcing the transformations to obey my will. But true power comes from partnership, from harmony between the parts. Exactly, Ben confirmed, stepping back as Albedo's omnifusion stabilized completely. Azimuth, who had been watching with growing amazement, finally spoke. The principle applies to far more than just transformation technology. It's a fundamental truth I hoped the Omnitrix would one day reveal. Ben turned to his friends, who were staring at his omnifusion form with expressions ranging from awe to concern. It's okay, he assured them, his harmonic voice gentle. I'm still me, just more. Are you stuck like this? Gwen asked hesitantly. No, Ben replied. The omnifusion is sustainable now, but I can still revert to human form when needed. To demonstrate, he touched the Omnitrix symbol at his center, and green light washed over him, returning him to his normal human appearance. The contrast was jarring, one moment a being of transcendent awareness and power, the next a regular teenager again. Ben staggered slightly, Kevin catching his arm to steady him. Whoa, Ben breathed. That's quite a shift. Are you all right? Azimuth asked with uncharacteristic concern. Yeah, Ben assured him, blinking as his perception adjusted back to normal human limitations. Just like going from IMAX 3D back to a flip book. Takes some getting used to. Albedo, meanwhile, remained in his omnifusion form, studying his stabilized condition. What happens now? He asked. I assume I'm still your prisoner. That depends, Grandpa Max's voice came over the communication system, reminding everyone that Plumber HQ had been monitoring the situation. Are you still bent on destroying Ben and stealing the Omnitrix? Albedo was silent for a moment before responding. The omnifusion has changed my perspective. I still desire my own identity, but I see now that merely copying Ben's power was never the answer. The harmonization appears to have affected more than just his physical stability, Azimuth observed. The consciousness integration may have altered his psychological patterns as well. Is that permanent? Rook asked. Unknown, Azimuth admitted. This is unprecedented territory. I propose a truce, Albedo said suddenly. I will share what I've learned about omnifusion and the Ultimatrix's capabilities in exchange for assistance in finding a way to restore my original Galvan form, my true self. Ben and Asmuth exchanged glances. That might actually be possible now, Asmuth said thoughtfully. With proper understanding of the harmonization principles demonstrated today, separating Albedo's Galvan DNA from the human and alien patterns should be achievable. So we help him, he helps us, nobody tries to destroy anybody. Ben summarized. I can live with that. Under strict supervision, Grandpa Max added firmly through the communication link. But yes, if Asmuth believes rehabilitation is possible, the plumbers can arrange it. Albedo nodded, then finally reverted to human form, though his appearance had subtly changed. While he still resembled Ben with white hair and red eyes, the features were less identical, showing hints of his true Galvan nature in their proportions and expressions. The omnifusion has already begun the separation process, Asmuth noted with interest. Fascinating. As arrangements were made to return to Earth with Albedo in supervised custody, Ben found himself standing by the observatory window, gazing at the blue planet hanging in space before them. The 15 alien consciousnesses integrated with his mind offered perspectives on its beauty that he'd never considered before, Ripjaw's appreciation of its vast oceans, NRG's awareness of its electromagnetic field, Astrodactyl's recognition of its gravitational significance. Quite a view, isn't it? Gwen said, joining him. Yeah, Ben agreed. But you should see it through omnifusion awareness. It's like, seeing every layer simultaneously, the physical planet, the energy fields around it, the gravitational waves, the life force of everything on it, all at once. Sounds overwhelming, Gwen commented. It would be, if I tried to process it all individually, Ben explained. But in omnifusion, it's more like harmony. All the different perceptions creating a complete picture together. Gwen studied her cousin thoughtfully. You've changed, Ben. And not just because of the alien DNA. Ben smiled slightly. Growing up, I guess. Realizing that having all this power isn't about control or being the strongest, it's about understanding, connecting, bringing things together that seem like they shouldn't fit. Pretty profound for a guy who used to just yell alien names and punch stuff, Kevin remarked, joining them by the window. Ben laughed. Don't worry, I'll still do plenty of that. Just, with better timing now. The omnifusion capability presents extraordinary possibilities, Asmuth said, hovering over to them on his platform. But also significant responsibilities. The power you've accessed today could change the course of civilizations if misused. I know, Ben acknowledged seriously. That's why I'm not planning to use it except when absolutely necessary. That kind of power, it would be easy to start thinking I should solve every problem, fix everything that's broken. A wise perspective, Asmuth said with approval. Perhaps you have matured after all, Ben Tennyson. Don't sound so surprised, Ben grinned. I've been saving the universe since I was 10. Had to grow up sometime. As they prepared to leave the lunar outpost, Ben took one last look at where his journey with the Omnitrix had led him. From a summer vacation discovery to omnifusion mastery, a path he never could have imagined but wouldn't trade for anything. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed with gentle green light, as if acknowledging the thought. Within his mind, the alien consciousnesses that had become part of him offered their own unique perspectives, not as separate voices now, but as harmonious aspects of an expanded awareness. Whatever challenges came next, he would face them with a new understanding of what it truly meant to be a hero. Not just someone with the power to fight, but someone with the wisdom to bring harmony where there was discord, unity where there was division. And somehow, that seemed like the greatest power of all. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.